Episode 421. Red Flowers.
"Shut up," Phil demanded. "You still dare talk such crap?"
He grabbed her hair and smashed her face into the table, rubbing her cheek in the puddle of cold oatmeal.
She still manages to look perfect, he thought. Embarrassed, but still beautiful.
The edge of Sam's lips turned up.
"You're asking for it now,"
he said in a terrifyingly mellow voice. He pulled a golden pistol out of a shoulder holster and pressed the muzzle to Jade's forehead.
"I have never been so close to death," she thought in terror. "I'm scared to die, but even more scared I'll never see Dario again."
"Go to hell," she said. His face, under the mask, was twisted as he ran the barrel of the gun across her cheek, her forehead, and finally brought it to rest against her lips.
"You're bold. I'll give you that. No wonder Foster likes you."
He pinched her cheeks together and shoved the gun into her mouth. Jade couldn't stop trembling as he said,
"Don't anger me anymore, or you'll be the one going straight to hell."
He reholstered the gun. Although Jade was still trembling in fear, the stubbornness was still there in her eyes. "Just admit it. It's because you feel inferior to Dario that you've resorted to threatening me."
"As long as I achieve my goals, it doesn't matter how I get there," he replied. "Foster says he loves you as much as his life. I want to see if he values your life more than his own. Don't worry, I won't let you die. Yet. You're still useful to me."
Jade spat at him. It missed, just touching the edges of his polished shoes. He spun toward her in a rage. He violently flipped the table, scattering their breakfast dishes across the floor.
"Take her away and keep a close eye on her," he demanded,
and two men in black suits stepped forward and grasped her upper arms, leading her away. They pushed her into a cabin and her knees gave way, sending her into a heap on the floor. The door slammed behind her. She quickly tried the handle. It was locked. She lay back on the cold floor. Her neck was burning.
"If Dario were to see me like this, it would break his heart," she thought. "Where is he now? Does he know I'm missing yet? Dario, please don't come after me," she whispered fruitlessly. "That man will use me to hurt you. I know it. If Dario gets hurt because of me, I won't be able to stand it," she thought. "I'd rather he didn't come for me at all."
In the most luxurious room on the yacht, Sam was sitting contemplating a full glass of wine and replaying Jade's words over and over in his head. With every sentence, he became more agitated, as if he would explode at any moment. He'd never felt like this before. "You're a much smaller man than you make yourself out to be if all you can do is bully a weak woman like me. You're useless. You're afraid of facing Dario directly. You know you're no match for him, so you have to resort to these despicable means." Her words kept churning around in his mind. "You're a coward. Are you angry because I told the truth? The angrier you are, the more it proves that I was right. You're a coward. A coward." The words were like a curse, getting under his skin, giving him a splitting headache.
"I didn't think anyone had this sort of power over me anymore," he thought. "How was she able to provoke me so much, that damn woman? Why can't I let this go? Is it because she's right? Because I can't compare to Dario Foster? But that can't be true. I'm the most powerful man in the world."
The glass in his hand broke, shards digging into his palm. His eyelids twitched. The scarlet blood mixed with the red wine.
"It's quite beautiful," he thought,
watching the liquid drip onto the floor.
"Like a red flower."
Phil and Kyle, who were standing at the door, didn't step forward to help him. It was too dangerous. He would tear them apart if they dared to get too close. Episode 422. Humiliation.
"Sam's taken that woman's words to heart," Kyle muttered to Phil. "It's really getting to him."
He rubbed a thumb over where his wrist had been dislocated. The ache was still there, but it hadn't destroyed his loyalty.
"Don't interfere," Phil said. "Haven't you learned that lesson already?"
Kyle shrugged off the warning.
"It was only my hand," he thought. "I'm still alive, aren't I?"
With a glance at Sam, brooding on the other side of the room, he said quietly,
"That woman shouldn't be alive. The boss treated her so well, and she insulted him for it. Isn't she Foster's woman? Why bother being polite to her?" "Don't do anything reckless," Phil said.
Kyle responded with a scary smile.
"I can't let this woman affect my plans," he decided. "She has to be dealt with." "Don't go looking for trouble," Phil said. "It's not like you don't know the boss's temper. Next time, he won't stop at just crippling one of your hands."
Kyle looked at him disdainfully.
Since when were you such a coward? We're supposed to help Sam, aren't we? So, we have to get rid of Foster. Sam's let that stupid woman ruin his focus and got us pulled into a game of hide and seek. We have to complete this mission or we won't be given another chance. Do you want to try explaining to Jamison Sr. why we failed?
Phil shuddered. Sam's father cast a large shadow.
Yeah, but so what? He said. Sam won't let us touch her. If you lay a finger on her right under his nose, then you're asking for it. What Sam doesn't know won't hurt him,
Kyle said with narrowed eyes. An hour later, Sam left the yacht by helicopter to attend to other business. Locked inside the cabin, Jade sat on the floor and tried to finger comb her disheveled hair, whispering Dario's name like a mantra. It's been 2 days since I was kidnapped, she thought. I never knew it was possible to miss someone so much. I might go crazy missing him. I bet he's feeling the same way by now. She closed her tired eyes. It's all my fault. I'm so incompetent. I was captured so easily, and I hardly resisted at all. I'm always making Dario worry. I'm a terrible wife. Her eyes began to tear up. She was crying with her head in her hands when the door slammed open. She quickly wiped her eyes. Kyle, Jamison's right-hand man, loomed over her. She pursed her lips, determined not to say a word. Kyle ran his gaze suggestively up and down her body. Even in dirty clothes and with hair in a state, she's still beautiful, he thought. She's even more appealing with tears in her eyes. I'd like to get myself a taste of Foster's woman. He began to advance toward Jade, and she felt a deep sense of foreboding. Phil appeared in the doorway behind him and leaned on the frame, blocking the exit. Kyle grabbed her wrist and hauled her to her feet, raking his eyes over her chest.
Hey Phil, get a photo of us together, he said. I'm sure Jade will want to remember this handsome face.
Jade's whole body went stiff. Could they mean to? No, please no, she thought. Kyle stripped off his shirt and pulled her into a fake pose, his muscular arms tight around her waist as Phil held up his phone. I can't believe these beasts are going to rape me, she thought. She turned her head and sank her teeth into Kyle's arms, and his grip on her slackened as he yelled in pain. She shoved him to the carpet and bolted for the door, but within a couple of steps, she felt a hand close around her ankle.
Get back here, bitch.
She fell, and he dragged her backward along the floor. There was a sharp pain in her scalp as he grabbed a handful of her hair and pulled her to her knees, then threw her onto the bed. Eyes watering from the pain, she bit her lip to avoid showing any weakness. What can I do? She thought. How will I ever be strong enough to resist what's going to happen? Kyle began to rip off her clothes. Before he could remove her underwear, she felt something snap within her. With an incoherent scream of rage, she frantically punched and kicked him without any plan or coordination. Her heel connected with Kyle's nose. With a muffled curse, he tried to stop the blood from spilling all over the bed. The metallic scent stoked his rage, and he looked ready to kill. Episode 423. A horrifying game.
You must have a death wish,
Kyle mumbled. With her kick, Jade had broken his nose.
You want to kick me? I'll chop off your legs and feed them to the dogs.
He wrenched her shoulder to pull her up to a sitting position and then backhanded her across the face. She fell back against the pillows. She had never experienced this kind of pain before. This is too much. I wish I could die, she thought. She was already weak from 2 days of imprisonment with no food. The slap made her dizzy. Half her face was red and swollen, and her mouth tasted of rust where her teeth had cut her cheek. She felt like passing out, but held on desperately to consciousness, knowing what they would do to her if she fainted. She pinched herself to try and focus her mind. If you lay a finger on me, I swear no one will ever find your body, she said through gritted teeth. I wish I could tear him apart, she thought. One day I'll pay him back for this.
Still talking tough, are you?
Kyle said.
Let's see if you're still this mouthy after you've become my bitch.
He grabbed her by the shoulders, hard enough to bruise. Let go! She struggled crazily. Reaching out for anything she could find, one hand landed on the bedside lamp. She smashed it onto Kyle's head. I will not let him touch me, she thought. I'd never be able to wash away the stain of it. I wouldn't be worthy of Dario anymore, and I'd rather die than let that happen. The lamp shattered, shards of glass cascading over Kyle's head. He screamed as sharp pieces pierced his scalp and face. The streams of blood running down his face made him look demonic. Terrified, Jade tried to run, but before she could manage more than 2 steps, Phil kicked her, forcing her back.
How could I have forgotten that he was filming all along? She thought. How can I possibly defeat 2 men by myself? Damn you, woman. Just let me have my way with you and I might spare your life, Kyle said, wiping blood out of his eyes. He drew a gun and pressed it against Jade's stomach. She shrank back in fear. I don't want to die, she thought. It would hurt Dario so much and I can't bear it when he's sad. She bit her lip and tried to think of the words that might save her life. Your boss went to a lot of trouble to kidnap me. He needs me alive in order to deal with Dario. Aren't you afraid of ruining the plan? What will Sam do to you if you mess it up? Kyle hesitated, and Jade gave a sigh of relief. The masked man was their weakness. You really think I don't dare kill you? Kyle said, wiping her cheek with the butt of his gun. Jade choked back tears, of humiliation as much as pain. Such a beautiful face. It seems a shame to ruin it, Kyle continued. So, where shall I put a bullet first? A hand? A foot? With a sinister smile, he pointed the gun at various parts of her body. Jade shook from head to toe, the uncertainty doubling her fear. He settled the barrel against the center of her right palm. Phil stepped fully into the room. All right, that's enough. You've had your fun. But if you actually kill her, you'll ruin the boss's plans, and there'll be hell to pay. But Kyle was too furious to listen to reason. He had a broken nose and lacerations all over his scalp. Knowing he couldn't kill her made him all the more angry. He grabbed her wrist so tightly that the bones ground together. With a cold smile, he said, All right, I won't kill her, but she deserves to be taught a lesson for hitting me. What are you planning? Phil asked without any sympathy. Don't worry, just a little game. He dragged her out of the cabin and along the corridor to a room in the middle of the boat without any windows. It was gloomy and furnished luxuriously but in very bad taste. In the center of the floor was a wheel taller than she was, with 4 leather handcuffs attached. Jade couldn't rip her eyes away from that wheel. An ominous feeling started in her stomach and crept up her throat. You'll soon know not to mess with me, Kyle said. He shoved her roughly against the wheel and locked the handcuffs tightly around her wrists and ankles. What are you going to do to me? Why are you treating me like this? Jade asked, frantically resisting Kyle's firm hands. But after 2 days of not eating, she felt as floppy as a rag doll. Confined by the cuffs, she couldn't move at all. Fear and despair overwhelmed her. Episode 424. The Wolf with a Golden Gun. Let the games begin, Kyle said with a wicked smile. He picked up a handful of darts. Jade drew in a sharp breath. He's going to use me as a human dartboard, she thought. Like I'm a circus attraction. These men really are animals. Take a photo to send to Mr. Foster, Kyle told Phil, so he can see how much his woman's enjoying herself. This sent her into absolute despair. No, please, you can torture me, but don't send a photo to Dario. If Dario sees me like this, he'll fall apart, she thought. All the blood drained from her delicate face. She had never been so scared. The more fear she showed, the happier Kyle became. He strutted over to her and set the wheel spinning so that she rotated head over heels. The dizzying motion made her stomach heave. She vomited, but since she had eaten so little, only a mouthful of bile came up and trickled down her chin. The wheel gradually began to slow, and she drew a breath of relief. But the torture was only just beginning. There was a sharp pain in her arm. Jerking her eyes to the side, she saw a dart quivering in the wood, soaking up blood from the gash it had scored into her arm. She bit her lip so as not to make a sound as she watched her blood seep out. Kyle threw another dart, and another. He wasn't aiming for any of her vital parts, but each dart nicked her arms or her legs, causing numerous small wounds. Immobilized by the cuffs, she couldn't move at all. One of the darts flew directly towards her face, and she jerked her head to the side. It caught her hair and pinned her to the wood. Kyle was incensed. Stay still. I won't miss it again. He was frustrated, and there was blood dripping into his eyes. A ruthless look passed across his face, and his mouth curled up. He threw the next dart hard, and it sank into her thigh. She convulsed and screamed. Kyle grinned, pleased with himself. Let's have a look. Where should I aim for next? He held the next dart up ready to throw, aiming first at her forehead, then at her heart. This one will be the one that kills me, Jade thought. I can't take it anymore. I'm covered in scars, and all the pain has bled into one giant ache. When this dart hits my heart, it will all be over. The dart left Kyle's fingers, flying straight for her heart. She watched it come toward her with a kind of numb fascination.
But before it could pierce her skin, there was a loud pop, and a bullet knocked the dart out of the air. Another gunshot rang out. Jerking her eyes up, Jade saw that Kyle had fallen to the ground with blood oozing from his leg. He cried out, clutching his thigh. His expression was twisted with pain. In a daze, Jade saw the masked man holding a golden gun, the muzzle still smoking. Sam stepped forward until he stood over Kyle's prone form and pressed the muzzle against his heart. Kyle's eyes filled with fear.
"Don't kill me,"
he begged, groveling like a child.
"I told you not to touch her,"
Sam said.
"Did you find something lacking in my orders?"
His voice was soft, but he was simmering with anger. Kyle panicked. He hadn't expected his boss to be back so soon. He knelt at Sam's feet, clutching the wound in his thigh.
"Sir, please, I did this for you."
"Shut up. I don't need a disobedient dog." He pushed the gun into Kyle's chest, and his finger tightened on the trigger. Phil hurriedly stepped forward and said hesitatingly,
"Sir, I know what he did was wrong, but he doesn't deserve to die. He's loyal. He was doing this because he thought it would help. You don't want to dirty your hands like this, do you?"
Sam cocked his head thinking. His eyes were like those of a hungry wolf, ready to reveal its fangs and bite at any moment. His gun arm dropped away from Kyle's chest, but then suddenly rose again. Bang! Kyle fell back onto the floor, paralyzed with shock and fear, his face covered in cold sweat. Sam fired the gun several more times, each shot accompanied by a whimper of pain from Kyle. Each shot grazed his skin, but none of them hit a vital spot. Phil, watching expressionlessly, widened his eyes. He looked between Kyle, spread-eagled on the floor, and Jade hanging from the wheel. Sam had fired in exactly the same pattern as the 8 darts that Kyle had thrown at Jade. Episode 425. You're a monster. Kyle was terrified. He didn't dare utter a word. He just stared dumbly at Sam, who was looking indifferently at the shells on the ground. Although he really wanted to shoot Kyle again, Sam refrained and put the gun away. But before he left, he callously and repeatedly stepped on his injured leg. Kyle writhed in pain and begged him to stop. Sam's loss of control shocked everyone. Phil had never thought that the usually composed Sam would lose it over something like Dario's girlfriend. The woman was indeed the bane of his existence. Kyle had been Sam's loyal, right-hand man for many years. He hadn't imagined that his boss could be so ruthless either. Yet here he was, with a destroyed hand and an injured leg. He was useless to Sam now. Sam removed Jade's handcuffs. Then he carried her out of the room. Kyle was still lying on the ground powerless and watched Sam's back as he left, his eyes filled with anger. He didn't regret having tortured Jade. He just regretted not having killed her at the time. Jade hadn't eaten for 2 days and was mentally and physically exhausted. As Sam carried her from the room, she fainted. When she woke up much later, she was smelling of alcohol and disinfectant. She had no idea how long she'd been out. She groggily opened her eyes. In front of her was a woman in a white coat. The woman appeared to be a doctor in her mid-40s. Jade began to feel the injuries all over her body and could barely move. The smell of disinfectant was making her nauseous. When the doctor saw her open her eyes, she gave Jade a gentle smile. "You're awake. You still need to rest. I'll give you something to help with the pain," she told her. Jade evaluated the woman in front of her. Glancing around to make sure there was no one else around, she tugged at the doctor's sleeve. She tentatively said, "Doctor, may I borrow your phone?" Jade wasn't sure if the doctor would help her, but she had no other choice. It was a gamble, but she couldn't just lie there doing nothing. The worst thing that can happen is that she'll say no, she thought. Even if Sam finds out, he probably won't harm me. If he'd intended to hurt me, he wouldn't have saved me from Kyle's torture. She didn't know if Kyle would appear again or if someone else would come to torture her. She wasn't ready to die. She hadn't married Dario yet, and she hadn't given birth to his grandfather's great-grandchild. Besides, there was no one to take care of her grandmother if she died. I absolutely cannot give up, she thought. I can't leave this world. Even if there's only a sliver of hope, I'll keep trying to survive. The doctor looked at her with surprise. She asked with some hesitation, "Miss, what do you want a phone for?" Jade could tell that this woman had a kind heart. She might even have been a mother. Jade looked at her miserably, hoping to gain her sympathy. "Doctor, I just wanted to call my grandma to tell her that I'm okay. I've been gone for a few days, and I'm afraid that she'll worry, Doctor. I just need to call her, please." As she spoke, Jade's eyes filled with tears. Her heart really did ache. The doctor sighed helplessly as she looked at the wounds on Jade's body and at her swollen face. She couldn't help but sympathize. How could anyone torture a girl to this extent? Jade looked to be the same age as her own daughter. Her heart softened, and she pulled out her phone and offered it to her. Jade was relieved to see the phone. She took it and quickly dialed a number. But just as she finished dialing, the door opened. Jade jumped in fright when she realized it was Sam. The color drained from her face, but she managed to slip the phone back into the doctor's pocket. She didn't want to bring trouble to someone who was only trying to help. She took a breath and calmly asked, "What are you doing here?" She prayed that he hadn't seen the phone. Sam walked into the room, ignored Jade's question, and asked the doctor, "How is she?" The doctor answered truthfully, "She's seriously injured. She needs rest. Her bandages will need to be changed regularly, and the injuries must be cleaned so she doesn't scar." "Okay, you can leave," Sam told her. Jade breathed a sigh of relief. He must not have noticed the phone. Jade was surprised when Sam turned to leave the room without saying anything to her. But as he left, he nodded toward the doctor and said to the guards, "Throw her into the sea." Suddenly, the two men dressed in black grabbed the doctor and dragged her away. It all happened so quickly that Jade had no time to react. She ran to the door, but Sam grabbed her and held her back. "Sam, you're crazy!" Jade screamed as she beat on his chest. "You're a madman! This is a person! You're ending a human life! Why would you throw her into the sea?" She knew that even the best swimmer was unlikely to survive in the shark and jellyfish-infested ocean. She began to doubt whether Sam and his minions were even human. "She gave you her phone just now. She disobeyed. I need people who will follow my orders," he replied coldly. Jade hadn't cried when she was hungry and helpless for 2 days. She hadn't cried when she was tortured. But at that moment, she lost control and began weeping in despair and frustration. "Sam, you're a monster. If you don't value a person's life, is there anything you do value? Is there anything that's important to you?" She screamed as she rushed forward and grabbed his shirt in anger. She looked ready to murder him. Episode 426. No Escape. Sam felt her tears fall onto his arm. The tears appeared to touch his heart because he reached out and tried to wipe them away from her cheeks. But before he could touch Jade's face, she turned her head away in disgust. "Why are you doing this?" she cried, and her angry eyes showed no fear. Sam stared back at her with pity and asked, "Why are you still as stupid as you were 5 years ago? You're always crying for people who don't care about you. You should save your tears for yourself. How can the life of a stranger be more important than your own?" He reached for her hand, but Jade pushed him away roughly. The guards at the door gasped in fear because they knew she was basically courting death with her actions. But they saw that Sam didn't appear angry. He looked at Jade with interest. "Get out! I don't want to talk to you. You're a beast that doesn't care about human life," Jade cried angrily. Sam smiled blandly. "You're very good at talking. Do you talk to Dario like that?" he asked. "I really don't understand why he took a fancy to you." Jade rolled her eyes at him.
Point. She couldn't take the...
But didn't say anything. Why did he fancy me, and why does Sam even care? She wondered. "You do realize that I've saved you twice now, don't you? Just now and 5 years ago. Is this how you treat your savior? It doesn't seem appropriate, does it?" Sam said. All he got in response was a disgusted look from Jade. She rolled her eyes again and said with disdain, "Saved me? You did this to me. You sent people to capture me and then torture me. Then the one person who was willing to help me was thrown into the sea. This doesn't feel like I'm being saved," she growled, and then turned away. She had no desire to look at him any longer. She quietly returned to the bed and glanced sadly at the medicine on the table. It was her fault the doctor was dead. Sam narrowed his eyes and watched as she turned away dejectedly. He brushed off his shirt and said to the guard at the door, "Go rescue the doctor. If you can't save her, don't bother coming back." His voice wasn't loud, but it carried down the hall to the other guards. They all jumped to attention and ran out to try to save the doctor from the sea. Jade was confused when she heard all the noise in the corridor. She didn't know what was going on. Then, someone closed the door to her room. She let out a sigh of relief and pulled the bed covers over herself. It hurt when she moved. She could only lie still. She frowned as she looked over her injuries. If Dario saw them, what would he do? "I wonder if my call on the doctor's phone got through to him," she thought. I hope he can guess that was a distress signal from me. Will he be able to track it to find me? She closed her eyes. All she could do was wait and hope, because she knew there was no way she could escape on her own. In his room at a luxury hotel in Philadelphia, Dario hadn't closed his eyes since his arrival. He'd done everything he could to track Jade down. He'd even gotten Lucas to ask police for videos from all the surveillance cameras in the area. Since she had disappeared, he had watched almost all of them. They had provided no clues, but he never thought of giving up. He went through the tapes again, sure that he had missed something. He had found a sign of Jade and the kidnappers on a small section of road, but it hadn't been helpful. He had no idea what direction they had gone after that. His men were searching all over Philadelphia. Dario had used all of his connections, good and bad, but there was still no trace of their whereabouts. David and Lucas were in the room with him. Their eyes were also bloodshot from lack of sleep. Lucas put down the phone and said disappointedly, "No sign of them at the train station or the airport. If they were anywhere in the city, we would have found them by now. The only other possibilities are that they left by boat or by helicopter." Just as Lucas finished his sentence, his phone buzzed. Someone had sent a video. He watched the video for a couple of seconds, and then his expression changed drastically. He quickly hit pause, but Dario had already heard the voice in the video. He grabbed the phone from Lucas and saw that there were two videos. One was a video of Kyle trying to molest Jade and showing how she broke his nose. The next was a video of Kyle torturing Jade as she was tied to a wheel. Halfway through the first video, Dario looked ready to kill. His handsome face turned icy and dangerous. He seemed ready to destroy anything close to him. "Sir, you need to stop watching," Lucas warned him. As angry as he had felt when he had seen the videos, he knew Dario felt worse. When the second video ended, he heard the phone being cracked in half. Lucas and David felt a deep chill of foreboding. They knew it was dangerous to try to approach Dario in this state. David had also caught a glimpse of the videos from where he'd been standing. Even his face was filled with rage. "Damn it! Those goddamn animals! First it was Miranda and now Jade? What kind of monsters attack a woman like that? They will burn in hell for this," David bellowed. He couldn't believe that there were people in the world who would act like that. Both he and Lucas were ready to do whatever Dario asked, and they turned to him for guidance. Dario's dark eyes looked out the window as he pictured how he would kill the men who had hurt Jade. Episode 427. Help Me Find You. The veins in Dario's forehead bulged as he clenched his jaw and curled his hands into fists. He looked terrifying. It was as if he had turned into a demon and was ready to take those people straight to hell. He was desperate to get to Jade's side and tear her torturers to pieces. Tears fell from his angry eyes as he thought of her futile attempts to resist. "You really need to stop picturing it," Lucas reiterated. "They only sent the videos to rile you up. They wouldn't dare kill her. Besides, we all know how strong she can be." Lucas choked up with worry as he spoke. He didn't know how to comfort Dario. Along with the anger in Dario's eyes, Lucas saw the helplessness and fear. He knew how deeply Dario loved Jade. He had never seen his boss this upset over another person. Lucas realized that the best thing he could do was to help find Jade and ensure her safety. If anything happened to her, Dario would become a walking corpse. "He's right, Dario," David said as he placed his hand on his friend's shoulder. "You need to stay calm. We need to focus on finding them. They know how much you care about her. That's why they took her away. They need to keep her alive so that you'll do what they want. So that gives us time to save her." He gently pulled the broken phone from Dario's hand and saw that his hand was bleeding. David looked at him sympathetically. He had never seen Dario lose control like that. During this time, Dario had been reviewing the video in his mind. His heart ached as he remembered Jade's screams. He blamed himself. He should have never left her side. It had been his job to protect her. "Oh, Jade," he sighed. "Where are you? Help me find you." His hands shook. It was heartbreaking. The video had been agony for him. Watching this woman, whom he had always pampered, being tortured like that was enough to drive him insane. Suddenly, his fear and helplessness vanished as anger took over and he vowed his revenge. His handsome face grew cold and calm. At that point, David dared to step forward and ask carefully, "What is it, Dario? Are you all right?" Dario pointed to the phone and said with purpose, "Find out where that came from." Lucas took the phone. He knew how to check the source of the video. If he could find out who sent it, he might be able to figure out their location. Dario sat back on the chair exhausted. Then he noticed that his phone had lit up, but only for a few seconds. He didn't want to deal with anything else at the moment, but he took it back from Lucas and checked the number. It wasn't one he recognized, but he had a gut feeling that it was Jade. She was trying to reach him. He dialed the number, but it didn't connect. He gave the phone back to Lucas and excitedly asked him to check the location, but they were disappointed. There was no signal for either that number or the number the videos had been sent from, so there was no way to find the GPS location. "What now?" Lucas asked weakly, but he had a feeling he knew. Since the other party dared to send such a video, they were prepared to use any means necessary to find them. "Find out who those numbers belong to," Dario instructed. "Make it fast." Jade had been on the yacht for 3 days. She had no idea where they were, but she knew that she was far away from Dario. She hadn't eaten anything and was numb with hunger. Her throat was dry and the knife wounds still pained her. The swelling on her face hadn't gone down yet. She didn't dare to close her eyes because she didn't know what would happen if she fell asleep. She looked out the window, staring blankly at the endless sea. Her eyes were clouded with confusion. Her longing for Dario was like a vine growing crazily in her heart. She didn't know where they were going, but she knew that they were traveling very quickly. Jade blew a breath of warm air on the window and wrote "Heaven" in the mist. Then she heard a familiar voice behind her. "You're no longer in US waters. Don't expect him to come and save you," Sam told her coldly. Jade's face turned stony. She slowly turned around and looked at him, trying to hide her surprise. "What? We're not in the States? Have we already hit international waters?" she wondered. "What are you talking about? Didn't you want to use me as a bargaining chip? If you don't let him find me, how will you negotiate with him?" she asked. Jade was becoming more and more confused. What is it that Sam hopes to do? She wondered. Sam smiled and sat lazily on the sofa. "I came up with a more interesting game to play. I'm betting that he's going crazy looking for you. I want to wait until he's about to completely lose his mind, and then I'll give him enough information to find you. Then I'll destroy him. I think that will be more fun." He smiled proudly as if he had everything under control. Jade frowned and looked at him with disgust. "Do you really think you can fool him by doing that?" she growled through clenched teeth. But inside, she worried that it was exactly what would happen. Episode 428. Those Dirty Hands. Well, I'll admit that Dario is quite powerful when he's calm. However, he's losing his mind because this involves you. It'll be a piece of cake to defeat him. I think he would come rescue you, even if he had to cross a flaming sea, Sam said. "No, Dario, don't come here," Jade pleaded in her mind. She looked at the infinite ocean outside her window worriedly. Sam studied her pale and haggard face. Then he looked at the plate of untouched food on the table and frowned. All the while, Jade continued staring out the window. Sam stepped forward and grabbed her arm, unknowingly touching one of the stab wounds. The pain made Jade gasp, and a cold sweat appeared on her forehead. "Why won't you eat? Do you want to starve to death?" he asked coldly. Jade shook his hand away angrily, biting her lips so she wouldn't cry out from the pain. She refused to look at him. "I can't eat because I can't stand the sight or the thought of you," she said coldly. Sam's eyes flashed angrily at her rejection. He grasped her chin firmly, trying to force her to look at him. When she did, he saw the disgust and revulsion in her eyes. "I can guarantee you, there are countless women who want to get close to me, but you're the first one to treat me like this. If you're thinking that because you're Dario's woman, I won't—" Jade cut him off. "Let me go. Don't touch me with those dirty hands. You're disgusting," she told him with a shudder of loathing. Sam's expression changed drastically when he heard her say disgusting and dirty hands. "Are you trying to get me to kill you? How dare you say my hands are dirty?" Sam answered furiously. "Aren't they dirty? How much blood do you have on them? I feel sick when I see you," she cried, and turned her head as if she couldn't stand to look at him. Sam radiated danger. His pitch-black eyes narrowed to slits as he said, "You have guts to talk to me like that?" Jade made it clear that she no longer wanted to talk to him. She quietly stood by the window and stared out at the boundless sea. The sea was far more pleasing to look at than the man behind her. Sam realized that she was done talking, so he didn't say any more. But before he left, he gave her a meaningful look. Jade watched the door close behind him, and her gaze fell on the dishes still on the table. She hadn't eaten for 3 days and was dizzy with hunger. She knew that this couldn't go on. If they didn't torture her to death, she could still starve to death. No, I can't die. Dario would be devastated. I must survive so I can see him again, she thought. She gritted her teeth and walked weakly to the table. She took a bite of food, chewed it slowly, and swallowed it. Dario, I promise you I will fight to live, she vowed to herself. When she thought of his handsome face, her eyes filled with tears. No, Jade, don't cry, she thought. You must be strong. You have dreams to fulfill. You're going to have a wedding and a baby with Dario. Have you forgotten? You need strength to get back to him. She swallowed the cold bites of food and drank some water. Her eyes were filled with tears and determination. When Sam left, he hadn't realized that Kyle and Phil were watching him from a corner. Kyle's leg was bandaged, and his face was contorted in pain from the gunshot. He punched the wall as he watched his boss depart, and he stared at the door to Jade's room. He hadn't expected Sam to increase her security after the incident. Now, no one except Sam could enter. His eyes were full of hatred and frustration. What's the boss thinking? He asked Phil, who was standing next to him. We've worked so hard to catch that woman. Isn't she just a trap for Dario? Now he's suddenly changed his plan. I think the boss has fallen in love with her. Do you think he wants to leave with her? He's planned this for so long. He wouldn't dare let Dario get away now, would he? He was staring at the gunshot wound on his leg as he said this. If Dario didn't come, he would have been shot for nothing. Did you send the video to Dario? He asked Phil. I think he could find us if he had enough inspiration. Find us? How? Replied Phil. We're in international waters. Do you think that his influence is that far-reaching? No matter how many connections he has, he can't find us here. When he thought of what had happened to Kyle, he became full of anger. They had planned to set a trap for Dario out at sea, but it had already been 3 days, and Sam had given no instructions about what to do next. They were all confused, frustrated, and angry. Kyle narrowed his eyes and asked, But what if he can? Maybe he's already found a clue. After all, if he's not able to find us, how is he a threat that the boss needs to deal with? Unless Dario has the skills to find us, Sam shouldn't fear him, he thought. Then he gave an evil smile and said, So I guess all we can do now is wait. That night, Sam personally delivered dinner to Jade. Initially, Jade had felt disgusted when she saw that dinner had been touched by Sam, and she tried to ignore it. But she realized that she would have no strength left if she didn't eat, so she gave in. When she had finished, she stood by the bed in her usual daze, looking at the ocean. At that moment, the yacht was moving slowly, rocking her like a cradle. It made Jade feel a little seasick. She sat on the floor for most of the night. It wasn't until the early morning hours that she finally crawled into bed to sleep. But first, she locked the door. Although she knew it was probably useless, it made her feel a little more at ease. Over the calm sea, the sky was cloudless. Unbeknownst to those sleeping on Sam's yacht, at that moment, another boat was slowly approaching. However, Sam, still wearing his golden mask, had spotted it through his binoculars. His pale lips formed a cold smile. Episode 429. The Moment of Reckoning. The time has finally come, Sam announced coolly to the others on the yacht's deck. Aboard the other ship, Dario's men could clearly see the outline of Sam's yacht. Soon, they would be able to catch up to it. Sam's ship had already slowed down, almost as if it was intentional. Phil stood on the deck, his eyes fixed on the other yacht as it approached. He reported to Sam, Boss, we've verified that the yacht belongs to Dario. Should we attack now? He was a little nervous. He hadn't known if this moment would come. Sam, on the other hand, looked very calm, as if he had always expected Dario's ship to catch them. He gave Phil a ruthless smile. Then he waved his hand unconcernedly and said, No need. We'll wait for them to attack first. At that moment, Sam told them to stop the engines. When Dario's yacht was near, it too slowly stopped. Sam and Phil could clearly see the 3 people on the other deck. Dario stood there in a black suit, flanked by Lucas and David. Dario's eyes shot daggers at the masked man, staring back at them. Dario, are you sure Jade's on board? How do you know? David asked, as he observed Sam's yacht through his binoculars. Sam's ship wasn't small. There were many military-like guards on it, and they were all heavily armed. Dario's eyes were emotionless as he stared ahead. He didn't answer David. He couldn't remember the last time he had closed his eyes. Jade wasn't by his side, so he hadn't been able to sleep at all. His dark eyes looked murderous. At the thought of Jade's suffering, he blamed himself, but it also made him want to tear her captors to pieces. Lucas's phone buzzed, and when he looked at it, his expression became solemn. He whispered to Dario, "Sir, they've successfully boarded." They'd arranged for 5 elite warriors to secretly board the yacht to find Jade. Dario nodded and looked at the helicopter pad situated in the middle of his large yacht. Dario stepped forward and spoke to the pilot of the helicopter. Then Dario, Lucas, and David quickly climbed aboard the chopper. David wore a slightly panicked look as he stepped in. He shouted, "Dario, you're not really going to take the helicopter over there, are you? What if they shoot us down?" Dario shot him a cold glance and said, "Close the door and let's go." David was shocked. Dario was ignoring him. He shouted, "Dario, you can't be serious." But he closed the helicopter door and realized that Dario did intend to go there. The person leading the team that was sneaking onto Sam's yacht was none other than Caroline. She was actually one of the most elite leaders in the Guardian Agency. She'd been assigned to the Millikan Agency to protect Jade. It had been a long time since she'd been on a mission. This time, because she knew Jade well and knew what they had done to her, her blood was boiling. Caroline led the other 4 people to the bridge. The 5 of them entered easily, and they used anesthetic needles to quickly subdue the crew members they encountered. They'd been afraid that gunshots would alert the others on the boat. Once the men on the bridge had been taken care of, Caroline glanced around and pointed to a few key spots. She told her people, "Place the explosives there, there, and there. Tie up the crew, and make sure their mouths are covered." After that, they began to look for Jade. The deeper they went into the ship, the tougher the security. However, Caroline wasn't worried about their safety. Dealing with that was simple. At that point, most of Sam's guards had gathered on the deck to await Dario's helicopter. They were all armed with heavy weapons. David watched from above, worried that one of them would shoot a missile that way. However, they landed safely. It seemed that the guards didn't have the authority to finish them off in the air. Sam watched them land on his yacht. He sneered and glanced at Dario through the helicopter's glass shield. Phil watched the copter land safely and became anxious. He asked, "Boss, when are we going to make a move?" Sam glanced at him and asked with annoyance, "What? Are you trying to tell me how to run things now?" Although Phil respected Sam face to face, he was beginning to feel antagonistic toward him. Sam said he wanted to deal with Dario, but if he wasn't going to give clear instructions about their mission, he wouldn't get the result he wanted. The first person to exit the helicopter was Dario. He gracefully stepped off the aircraft, full of vigor, as Sam glared at him. Surrounded by men armed with heavy weapons, Dario showed no sign of fear. As soon as he stepped onto the deck, Dario spotted Kyle standing next to Sam. The video of Kyle and Jade popped into his head. This was the man who had attacked and tortured Jade. Dario felt his body fill with the desire to tear him limb from limb. His face transformed into a beastly expression, and he looked as if he would destroy Kyle if he got too close. Kyle saw the look Dario gave him and froze in fear. It was the most terrifying gaze he had ever encountered. He felt as if Dario could kill him with just one glance. Episode 430. I'll kill him. Sam's henchmen seemed shocked by Dario's confidence. He walked onto the deck of the yacht with such self-assuredness that there was a collective sense that they were the ones who were out of their depth and hopelessly outnumbered. Dario looked around him with a domineering expression, as if daring them to challenge him. They avoided his gaze. "I see the leader of the Guardian Agency is here, and he's made quite an entrance. Welcome, Mr. Foster," Sam said loudly, as he clapped his slender hands mockingly. David and Lucas followed closely behind Dario. The moment that all 3 of them were on deck, Sam's mercenaries aimed their weapons at them. If Sam gave the order, they would open fire, and it was difficult to imagine anyone surviving such an overwhelming hail of bullets. Instead, Sam looked at the 3 men with interest. David stood slightly behind Dario and observed the armed men facing them. When he realized that they weren't intending to open fire, he stepped out from behind his friend and shouted, "Hey, you masked moron! You've got what you wanted. We're here. Now bring Miss Winslet out." Sam wasn't used to being insulted, and it was with great difficulty that he managed to keep his temper under control. He smiled and slowly sat on his grand-looking chair. Phil, who was standing beside him, poured him a glass of red wine. Sam swirled the wine around in the glass and stared at Dario with killing intent.
Dario, I can't make it that easy for you to see your woman. I put a great deal of effort into acquiring her, and if I allowed you to see her so easily, I would be missing an opportunity to have some fun.
Dario's expression remained calm, but inside he felt panic rising.
It sounds like Jade is fine for now. If he dares to hurt her in any way, I'll kill him, whatever the cost.
The thought of Jade being somewhere on the boat, afraid and without his protection, hurt Dario deeply, and he had to concentrate hard to focus his thoughts on the situation at hand.
In the video they sent, it looks like Jade is injured. I just want to hold her in my arms and comfort her, he thought,
angry and scared for her.
They sent me the video to provoke me to act irrationally so that I come here and fall into their trap. If I want to save Jade, I need to keep a clear head and stay calm, he thought.
As he calmed himself, his dark eyes focused on his enemy. He looked directly at Sam and said,
I'm here. What do you want?
Sam raised his eyebrows, and a bloodthirsty smile appeared on his face.
What would you do if I said I would trade your life for Jade's? He asked,
watching Dario's handsome face keenly to see how he would react.
You must let me see her before I die,
Dario said without hesitation. A trace of surprise flashed across Sam's eyes. Then he smiled cruelly. He waved his hand and said to his minion Phil,
Bring her here.
Phil was confused, but he obeyed his master without question.
The boss could have used her to restrain him. Why is he giving away his leverage? It doesn't make sense.
Dario felt his heart beat faster at the thought of seeing Jade again, but he maintained his composure and watched Phil as he left the deck.
I spend so much of my time thinking about her, even when we're apart. I truly think that I'd lose my mind if I never saw her again, he thought.
Sam observed the subtle change in Dario's expression, and he smiled disdainfully.
I never expected Dario to have such a weakness for a woman, he thought. However powerful someone is, as long as you know their weakness, it's an easy matter to destroy them, and Jade is his weakness.
David and Lucas also noticed the change in Dario's expression. They both knew that he was worried about Jade and struggling to retain his self-control. David whispered,
Don't worry, Dario. They won't dare to hurt her. Everything is going to plan. By now, Caroline and the others have already sneaked in.
On the second floor of the yacht, Caroline and her team had gained entry. Almost all of Sam's mercenaries were on the deck. The guards inside the boat hadn't been expecting an attack, and they had all been quickly dispatched. Caroline and her team had planted explosives throughout the second floor. She judged that it would be enough to blow the yacht up when the time came. As they arrived at the third floor, 2 patrolling guards spotted them and raised their weapons to open fire, but Caroline quickly and quietly disarmed them and knocked them unconscious before they were able to shoot. The rest of her team was impressed with her skill, and they looked at her with respect, ashamed that the woman from the Milliken agency had proved to be more effective than any of them. Caroline was surprised to find that after searching the entire third floor, they still hadn't found Jade. She was just considering her next course of action when she received a message from Lucas informing her that Jade had been brought on deck. She breathed a sigh of relief and finished ensuring that the explosives were in position. When Caroline had been given the duty of protecting Jade, she had initially seen her as a silly woman, but she had gradually come to respect and admire the aspiring star. When Jade had been kidnapped from under her nose, she felt a responsibility to save her. Episode 431. A Big Decision. Phil brought Jade out on deck. She followed him willingly, desperately hoping that he was taking her to see her husband. When she saw Dario, who was standing on the deck, her tears flowed freely. I never really expected to see him again, she thought. Dario, is it really you? Did you come to find me? She asked. If it hadn't been for the thought of one day seeing him again, I would never have been able to stay strong, she thought. Dario watched as Phil brought her out into the open. She looked pale and drawn, and tears welled up in his eyes. He could see injuries on her bodies, but none of them looked serious.
It's me, Jade,
he said and stepped toward her. He kissed her on the lips.
I'll never let her out of my sight again,
he thought. Dario's gaze fell on her slightly swollen face and the cut on her thigh. Although he knew that the man named Kyle had inflicted the injuries, he felt a sense of guilt that he hadn't been there to protect her.
Jade, this is all my fault. It's my fault for not being able to protect you properly, he said, his throat tight with grief.
Jade looked around and realized where all the guards had gone from inside. They're all out here, she thought. There are so many of them, and they have their weapons aimed at Dario. This was a trap. No, Dario, it's all my fault, Jade said. I keep putting myself in danger, and then you have to keep coming to save me over and over again. Dario, please just go. You're in terrible danger if you stay here. She thought back to what Kyle had done. These people are dangerous, she thought. I don't want them to get their hands on Dario. You silly thing. Stop talking nonsense. It's my fault for not protecting you well enough, he said, his eyes teary. She's much stronger than I could have ever imagined, he thought. Thank goodness I finally found her, but none of this would have happened if I hadn't made too many enemies. This is all my fault, but she's trying to take the blame herself. Whatever happens here, I'll do everything I can to protect her. You're the stupid one. Why did you come here? You must know how treacherous these people are, Jade said. Dario is so wonderful. He must have known that this was a trap, and he came to save me anyway. How can I ever repay him? She thought. Dario, why are you so good to me? I'm so scared. I'm afraid I'll lose you, and if I lose you, how am I going to carry on living? She asked. Why are you two talking so much nonsense? Phil asked, with a look of contempt on his face. He was excited at the thought of watching Dario suffer, and he was bored of seeing them exchange declarations of love. I've never missed anyone so much in my life, Jade thought. She desperately wanted to throw herself into her husband's arms, but she suspected that if she did, the man beside her would shoot without warning, and she didn't want to die like that in front of the person she loved. Dario was also acutely aware of the gun in Phil's hand. He was desperate to embrace his wife and take her away to safety, but he knew that he couldn't do anything sudden or reckless. If I act rashly, Jade could end up getting hurt, he thought. Sam's cold voice interrupted Dario's thoughts. This is all really very touching. It's like watching a TV series, he said, with obvious contempt. Sam was pleased to see the fear in Dario's face as he spoke. He was enjoying himself. Dario, we've brought your woman, Sam said. Now is the time for you to make a decision. One of you can live, but the other must die. Do you want to die, or shall she die? Hurry up and decide. Jade was terrified by Sam's words. What did he mean by that? What kind of cruel game is this? She thought. Sam, you're a despicable man. You're a coward, using a woman like me to get to Dario, Jade protested. Then a thought occurred to her. With all these guns aimed at him, Dario has no chance. But maybe it would be different if it was a fair fight. I've seen Dario fight, and I can't imagine anyone being able to beat him. Why don't you fight Dario alone, you bastard? She shouted at Sam. Let me try, boss, Phil said. He passed his gun to the man nearest to him and motioned for him to keep it trained on Jade. This is an opportunity not to miss, Phil thought, as he looked at Dario provocatively. Sam smirked and glanced at Phil. Then he looked at Dario and said, It might be fun to watch you and my man play here together. I don't want people to think that I'm not a fair-minded guy, he said. What do you think, Mr. Foster? Are you willing to give it a go? Sam asked. Episode 432. A Worthy Opponent. From the moment Jade had appeared, Dario's gaze had never left her. Only when Sam spoke did he look away to meet the criminal's eyes. Dario looked at him coldly and said, What do you want to use? You're not worthy of fighting, Mr. Foster. Let me handle this piece of trash, Lucas said, stepping forward. But Dario pushed him back and shook his head. If I don't do this myself, Sam will never let the matter rest, he thought. There's no other way. Sam was surprised to see Dario agree so readily to one-on-one combat with a henchman. He's even willing to lower himself to fight a nobody like Phil for the woman he loves, he thought. Mr. Foster, you're a well-renowned fighter, said Sam. Phil is nothing more than a servant. For the sake of fairness, if you're empty-handed, Phil can have a gun. Otherwise, he wouldn't stand a chance against you. That's fair, isn't it? He sneered as he spoke, and he threw the pistol in his hand to Phil. Phil looked at the gun and smiled. This was going to be easy, he thought. Jade felt panicky as she looked at the weapon in the criminal's hand. Dario is incredibly strong, she thought. I've no doubt he would win if it was a fair fight, but how can he fight a man with a gun?
Sam, you're a beast, Jade shouted. Are you trying to kill him? Why are you doing this? Sam saw Jade looking at him with disgust, and he was surprised to feel a pang of regret, but he ignored his doubt and said, You'll find out soon enough. There's no point in talking to that animal, she thought. She stared at Dario, her beautiful eyes filled with longing and heartache. If it wasn't for me, he would never be in this position. It's all my fault, she thought. Dario, please, you need to survive this, Jade pleaded. I need you to stay alive. We want to have a wedding. We want to have a baby together. You have to stay alive. Promise me you'll stay alive. Tears streamed down her face as she spoke. I can't promise you that I'll survive this, he said, sadness etched into his face. But I can promise you that you will. His heart ached as he saw how sad she was, but there was nothing else he could do. Dario! Dario! She said, desperately trying to stop him from facing his armed opponent. Phil had grown tired of waiting and he shouted, You have bigger problems right now than saying your farewells. It's time to go to hell, Dario. As he spoke, he raised the pistol in his hand and fired. Jade screamed as she heard the sound of the gun going off. Dario reacted a split second before Phil pulled the trigger, darting left and then right in a zigzag motion while sprinting towards his adversary. His movements were as agile as a cat's and almost seemed impossibly quick. Phil moved backward as he shot, increasingly frustrated at being unable to hit Dario's fast-moving body. Despite his zigzagging motion, Dario made rapid progress toward Phil. Phil ran out of bullets and swore as he rapidly ejected his magazine and took out a fresh one from his belt. But just as he had reloaded his weapon, Dario was upon him. In one swift motion, he seized the gun out of Phil's hand and shot him in the knee. Phil crumpled to the ground in pain and kneeled in front of Dario on his one good knee as a pool of blood began spreading across the deck. Jade looked on with a mix of horror and relief. She had seen many fight scenes during filming, but to see so much violence played out in real life in front of her eyes was a very different experience. Dario could have died, she thought. Phil looked up at Dario, his eyes full of disbelief and shock. How the hell did he move so quickly? He wondered. Phil had heard that the leader of the Guardian Agency was a deadly opponent, and he had long wanted to see it for himself and to test his own skills against him, but he was shocked at his superior abilities. The rest of Sam's mercenaries looked on with deep respect for Dario. Phil was known to be a very capable fighter who had killed many times. To see him so easily dispatched by an unarmed man was quite a shock. Jade sighed with relief to see the gun in Dario's hand, but she was still petrified about what was going to happen next. Sam raised his eyebrows in surprise to see Phil kneeling on the ground in front of his enemy. He quickly regained his composure and smiled. This man is indeed a worthy opponent, he thought. He looked at the scene in front of him with interest. There wasn't even a hint of sympathy for his wounded minion. Dario was about to shoot Phil a second time when Sam spoke. Wait, this game is no fun anymore. If Phil is wounded and can't move his leg, then he doesn't stand a chance against you. That's hardly fair now, isn't it? You need to be shot as well to even things up a bit.
Episode 433. A Change of Rules. Dario looked at Sam with fury in his eyes. Jade spoke up. Sam, that's not what you had agreed to. Dario won even though your man had a gun. You lied. Sam glanced at her indifferently and said, When did I lie? I didn't say that I couldn't change the rules of our little game. Now that my man is shot, we need to readjust the rules a little. Anyway, this is my yacht. I'll change the damn rules here whenever I wish. Of course, you can choose not to play anymore, Dario, but the cost of doing so might be a higher price than you're willing to pay. Sam smiled sinisterly as he spoke. He looked very pleased with himself. He then took out a golden pistol and aimed it at Jade. He pulled the trigger, and Jade felt the breeze from the bullet as it passed close by her ear. It was the first time that Jade had ever been so close to a bullet. Her legs felt weak, and her face went pale. She desperately wanted to be strong for Dario, but she felt fear take hold of her. Now, Mr. Foster, Sam said nastily, whether you follow my rules or not is entirely up to you. I'm going to count to 3, and if you haven't shot yourself, then I promise you, the next time I pull this trigger, I won't miss. Jade sat on the ground trembling. She didn't dare to move. Sam began counting. 1. But before he could count any further, there was a loud bang as Dario pulled the trigger. Jade's eyes widened as she looked over at her husband. His pistol was pointing directly at his own chest, and a blood stain started to spread from where his gun was pointing. "No, Dario," she shouted. "What have you done? What will I do if you die, Dario?" Dario still stood tall and proud and didn't show any signs of pain. He still held the gun in his hand, his eyes sad as he looked at his wife. "I'm sorry, Jade. I had to. I can't risk your life, not for anything." No, Dario, how could you do something so stupid? If you die, I won't want to live anymore anyway," she yelled. Then she pushed the man who was next to her and shouted, "Let go of me! Get out of my way!" All of her fear had dissipated as soon as she saw the blood running down Dario's chest, and she struggled with all her might to get to him. "Don't move, or there'll be more holes in your beloved man's body," the guard next to her said threateningly, as he grabbed her and put his gun to her head. Jade sat back down on the deck, her eyes full of despair. "You're an animal. Why are you doing this to us? Why?" she shouted. "What did Dario do to deserve this, Sam? You're a coward. You're just a coward." Jade's body trembled as she spoke with a mixture of fear and anger. David and Lucas looked on nervously. They both stepped forward, desperate to help, but Sam called out to them, "Don't even think about it. It's very unwise to meddle in other people's business. One more step, and my finger will begin to get twitchy, and who knows what will happen then. No matter how fast you are, I guarantee you won't be quick enough to save her." As Sam spoke, his golden gun remained pointed at Jade's head. Several of his henchmen aimed their guns at Jade as if to emphasize their master's point. Dario looked on helplessly. Phil noticed that Dario was distracted, and he seized the opportunity. He punched Dario with all of his strength, striking him in the stomach. Dario was shocked, reacted too late, and only managed to slightly deflect the blow as he let out a sharp breath. He returned his gaze to his attacker, tossed the gun in his hand, and picked Phil up. He threw him over his shoulder, crashing him into the deck. Phil was a large and well-muscled man, but Dario had lifted him as if he was nothing. Dario then twisted his body and brought his foot down hard on Phil's unprotected chest. The distinctive sound of ribs breaking rent the air, and blood spurted out of Phil's mouth. In intense pain, Phil gritted his teeth and tried to stand up, but his feet wouldn't obey him. Dario looked down at his opponent. "I know he's the one who sent those videos," he thought. "He was there when Jade was assaulted. He was an accomplice. For that, he deserves to die." Then, Dario lifted Phil up and delivered one final kick with all of his strength. The power of his kick sent Phil stumbling to the side of the boat, where he slid lifeless onto the deck. "He's more formidable than I realized," thought Sam. Sam's voice sounded once again. "Very impressive, but nothing less than I would have expected from the fabled leader of the Guardian Agency. However, you're playing my game too easily. I've decided to change the rules again." Dario ignored Sam. Instead, he kicked the pistol toward Kyle and said, "You, come and fight me." Episode 434, Deadly and Ruthless. Kyle looked at his master for approval. Sam nodded his head in assent and threw another pistol to his minion. Kyle caught it and then picked up the one that Dario had kicked over to him. Despite his injured leg, he stood confidently with a pistol in each hand, and then he raised his weapons and opened fire at Dario. Although already wounded, Dario darted in such a way that Kyle's well-aimed shots repeatedly missed their target. Moving rapidly, Dario closed the gap between them and then disarmed Kyle with a series of lightning-fast strikes. He threw one of the pistols to the ground and fired the other into his new adversary's groin. A puddle of blood quickly formed on the deck underneath Kyle. Everyone watching was shocked that Dario had once again disarmed a trained fighter and ruthlessly dispatched him against all the odds. Jade watched as Kyle, her tormentor, was at the mercy of her husband. She thought back to what Kyle had done to her, and she shivered. She knew that her husband had just gotten justice for her. "Thank you, Dario," she mouthed silently. As the realization of what had happened hit Kyle, he held his groin and screamed in pain. He picked up the gun from the floor and with trembling hands put it to his own head and pulled the trigger. Dario stood there, impassive, and watched as Kyle's lifeless form crumpled to the deck. Sam, having lost his two most important underlings, showed little emotion. He observed Dario with a slight smile. Jade was shocked at how effectively Dario had dealt with the two men, who both looked like competent opponents. I would have never thought that he was that dangerous, she thought. I wonder what other skills he's been hiding from me. Sam looked at Kyle dispassionately and motioned to one of his men to throw him overboard. The man quickly obeyed, and a loud splash followed. Your skills are every bit as impressive as the rumors say, Mr. Foster, Sam said in a surprisingly magnanimous tone. You're both deadly and ruthless. However, as I have already said, if you want your woman to live, you must trade your life for hers. David took a step forward and shouted, You masked freak! Dario is worth more than 100 of you pathetic scumbags. You underestimated him, and now you're scared. If you had any balls, you'd fight him yourself, but you're a coward, so you won't. Sam looked disdainfully at David, and then he looked at Dario and said, You understand the deal, don't you? It's really rather simple. Either kill yourself or I'll kill your woman. Of course, you could refuse my generous offer, but then I'll be forced to shoot her. Recently, I'm afraid that my aim has been a little off, so I can't say where my bullets will hit. It may be her head, or it could be her pretty little face. Now, that would be a pity, wouldn't it? Sam stared at Jade as he finished speaking, but Jade was thinking only about Dario's safety. No, Dario, don't listen to him. Ignore him and get out of here. I can't take it if you die. Sam spoke again. I'll count to 3. If you don't shoot yourself, by the time I reach 3, I'll shoot your woman. He then got up out of his chair and walked nonchalantly toward Jade with a grin on his face. 1, 2. Dario suddenly bent down, picked up the gun on the ground, and aimed it at his own chest. David and Lucas both rushed forward and tried to stop him, but he pushed them away. Jade looked on petrified. Her legs felt wobbly and her throat felt tight. No, Dario, put the gun down, she shouted. Dario looked back at her with love in his eyes and said, Look away, Jade. Turn your head away. She shook her head, hoping that he wouldn't pull the trigger while she was looking at him. Dario turned to Sam and said, Tell her to turn around and cover her eyes. Don't let her see. Sam grinned and waved his hand. The man guarding Jade immediately moved her head and covered her eyes. But Jade was not willing to be obedient. She fought against him without any fear for her own safety. While she was struggling with the man, she heard the loud bang of gunfire. Dario, what have you done? She shouted. She suddenly found a reserve of strength that she didn't know existed, and she somehow managed to push the man away and run towards her husband. Dario was kneeling on one knee. More blood dropped onto the deck from a wound that she couldn't see. Well, well, it seems that Mr. Foster has managed to take 2 bullets and still live. Let's see how many it takes before you manage to fulfill your part of the bargain, shall we? Sam said. Jade looked at Dario in horror. If he shoots himself again, there's no way he'll survive, she thought. Why is this madman doing this to us? She watched as Dario placed the gun to his chest, as if preparing to shoot again. Episode 435. Aim for your heart. No, Dario, that's enough. I beg you, Jade cried. Just get out of here, Dario. I'm begging you. Don't shoot yourself again. I'd rather die. I'd rather die myself. I beg you, Sam, tell them to shoot me. Please don't let Dario shoot himself again. Jade's eyes were red and swollen from crying. As she spoke, she grabbed the hand of the man beside her and tried to force him to point his gun at her head. Please, just shoot me, she pleaded. The guard looked unsure about what to do, but he managed to keep control of his weapon. If I live and Dario dies, what will be the meaning of life? She thought. David and Lucas watched and felt helpless. They were both aware that Dario would willingly sacrifice his life for Jade. Otherwise, they would have already made a move against the masked man. Dario, are you really going to kill yourself? David asked, desperate to stop his friend from pulling the trigger. You can't bear to let Jade die, but she'd be miserable anyway if you were dead. Stop and think. You won't achieve anything if you kill yourself. Dario still held the pistol in his hand, pointed at his chest. Jade is my life, he said. I can't watch her die. I just can't. Jade looked at Dario with increasing sadness. She kneeled down on the ground, feeling helpless. Dario, I beg you, don't listen to them. Don't do anything else to hurt yourself. I'm not worth it. Dario showed no signs of relenting. He kept the pistol aimed at his chest. Jade tried again to get through to him. Dario, if you shoot again, I'll kill myself and I'll haunt you forever. Dario looked at her and said, Jade, you can't die with me. My only wish is for you to survive. If you die too, then my death will be for nothing. He had tears in his eyes as he spoke. Jade wrapped her arms around herself as her fear for him enveloped her. Dario, that's enough, she shouted. Just stop. If you die, who'll cook for me and be by my side when I wake up in the morning? I don't want to live if you're not by my side. Dario looked at David and Lucas and said, When I'm dead, you need to take good care of her for me. David punched him and shouted angrily at his friend. What the hell do you mean? Take good care of your own woman. Who the hell has the time to take care of your woman? If you kill yourself, I'll never look after Jade. Sam had watched them with mild amusement. Amusing as it is to listen to your nonsense, I think it's time to continue with the matter at hand. Dario, do you want to trade your life for hers or not? Some of the men near Jade pointed their guns at her in response to their master's words, but Jade didn't react. Her eyes were filled with hatred and despair. She sat and watched as Dario prepared to pull the trigger yet again. He turned his body so that she couldn't see the gun anymore. This time, Sam said, aim for your heart. Jade could see Dario move, as if he was shifting the angle of the gun. If only he stopped now, we could get him to a doctor and he might survive, she thought. But if he shoots himself in the heart, he'll die instantly. No, Dario, don't do it, Jade yelled desperately. Don't listen to him. Just throw the gun away, I beg you. What are you waiting for? Sam said. Hurry up and shoot, otherwise she dies. Jade hadn't eaten much during her time on the yacht, and the trauma that she had endured was suddenly too much for her. She felt dizzy and then collapsed. Dario heard her fall to the ground and guessed that she had fainted. Perhaps it's for the best, he thought grimly, as he steeled himself to pull the trigger. He was unaware that Jade's final thought before she had fainted was that she would end her own life rather than live without him. If you want me to die, then let Jade go first, Dario said assertively to Sam. That won't do. If I let her go, there's nothing to stop you from turning that gun of yours on me, is there? You're just going to have to trust me to keep my word. If you fulfill your side of the bargain, I promise that I'll let her go immediately. You're the one that I want. The woman is of no interest to me. Sam's attention was focused on Dario, and he didn't notice that David and Lucas had quietly taken a few steps toward where Jade was lying. Episode 436. Keep them safe. Dario looked at Jade, who had fainted. The guards had dismissed her as an unarmed woman who was no threat, so they no longer aimed their weapons in her direction. Come on, Dario. Are you going to do it or not? We don't have all day, Sam said tauntingly. Sam was surprised to hear 2 gunshots. One was from Lucas, who had shot at the man on Jade's left. The other shot was from Dario, who had shot the man on Jade's right. David rushed forward, grabbed Jade, and dragged her to Dario. He then took out a gun and pointed it at the mercenaries. All 3 were now armed and aiming it at the enemy. Dario kissed Jade on the lips, in relief at having her in his arms. Dario, what are you doing? This is no time for smooching with unconscious women, David said angrily. In case you hadn't noticed, we have other important matters to attend to at the moment. A hailstorm of bullets swept the deck as some of Sam's men opened fire. Lucas glanced at his pager, smiled, and shot off a flare. A second later, the yacht's control room suddenly exploded. Sam's mercenaries looked up in shock at where the bridge had been just moments ago. Sam stared at Dario, who was still holding Jade tenderly. Then he looked up at the flames coming from his boat. I knew it, Sam said. I knew you wouldn't just walk into my trap obediently. David shot at the guards until he ran out of ammunition and then retreated to Dario's side and took a small remote control device with a red button on it out of his pocket. Hey, you masked moron, he shouted at Sam. I'll tell you something. Your yacht is packed full of explosives. This boat could explode into tiny pieces at any moment. As soon as I press this button, the whole place will be blown to smithereens. If anybody pulls another trigger, I'll press the button. The worst case scenario is that we all die together, but I've made peace with that. Of course,
There's no guarantee that my hands won't get shaky. It could go off any time, really. Dario glanced at the device in his friend's hand. Isn't that from one of Debbie's games? He thought. How did it end up in David's hands? I thought Lucas was meant to have the detonator. The gunfire stopped, and Sam's mercenaries looked around in fear. Several of them laid down their weapons and glanced at their boss questioningly. One of the men stepped forward and said, Sir, now that the woman has been rescued, how are we going to deal with Dario? They had seen how easily Dario had dispatched two formidable opponents, and now Dario and his two men were armed. They had also lost their leverage, and there were explosives planted on the yacht. They were in a significantly worse position than they had been, and the guards' morale had suffered as a result. Sam looked again at Dario, who was still hugging Jade. The way they kissed and the tenderness between them was imprinted on his mind, and try as he might, he couldn't get the image out of his head. He looked at the guards with contempt, and the man backed away with fear in his eyes. Dario kissed Jade's mouth and then reluctantly said to David, Take Jade away. Keep her safe. Jade regained consciousness and opened her eyes. She was frightened to see her husband covered in blood, and she wrapped her arms around his neck nervously. Dario, why did you just tell him to take me away? Why don't you come with us? She asked. Jade, be good. I'll join you soon, he replied, and then kissed her on the forehead. Dario, are you sure? David asked. She's your wife. You should go with her. Leave this to me. Don't talk nonsense, Dario replied. Take her. It went against all his instincts to send Jade away with another man, even if it was the man he trusted most in the world, but he felt that he had unfinished business to attend to. Dario, I can promise to take care of her temporarily, but she's your wife, and you have a responsibility to look after her yourself, David said, as he took her out of Dario's arms. With both his hands free, Dario turned around, deliberately avoiding Jade's pleading eyes. You're responsible for protecting them, he said, looking at Lucas. Lucas nodded. Don't worry about them, I'll keep them safe. You've got this. I believe in you. Lucas had followed Dario for long enough to believe that he was capable of finishing off what they had started. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left him alone. Sam is no match for Dario, he thought. No, David, let me down. I want to stay here with Dario, Jade protested. But David ignored her pleas and took her back toward the helicopter. Miss Winslow, don't worry, Lucas said. Now that he knows you're alive and safe, Mr. Foster isn't going to take unnecessary risks. He wants to see you again too much for that. Lucas rarely comforted people, but he felt that the present circumstances warranted an exception. He escorted David and Jade to the helicopter, then covered the rear to make sure that none of Sam's mercenaries decided to start shooting again. He looked at Dario with deep respect as he climbed onto the helicopter, reluctant to leave his boss behind. He knew that Dario felt compelled to settle the score with Sam. After all the suffering that his adversary had inflicted on Jade, Dario was intent on seeking revenge. Sam's mercenaries still seemed unsure of what to do. They looked around nervously, aware that with the push of a button, they could all be blown to pieces. Sam stood as still as a statue. Only his hair moved as it blew in the wind. He watched silently as Jade, Lucas, and David boarded the helicopter and then flew away to safety. Dario breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Sam. Sam returned his gaze and said, It looks like you want to fight me 1-1. You are not a worthy opponent, Dario replied contemptuously. Sam felt anger welling up inside him as he looked at Dario. How can he still be standing, looking as handsome as ever, after being shot twice? How has he managed to foil my plan? What is it about him that makes him so extraordinary? He wondered. Episode 437. Vengeance. I took your woman, and I made her suffer. Now you're desperate to teach me a lesson, aren't you? Sam said. But do you really think it's going to be that easy? You've underestimated me. As he finished speaking, Sam sprinted forward. He was agile and fast, and he covered the distance between them quickly and threw a punch at Dario's face. Dario remained still as Sam ran at him, and he waited until the last moment before he skillfully dodged his assailant's attack. Sam threw a series of lightning-fast, powerful punches, but Dario evaded them all and then threw his own punch, striking Sam hard in the stomach. Under his mask, Sam's face twisted in pain. He's been shot twice. How can he still move that fast? He wondered.
Sam's men looked on nervously. They wanted to help, but they were worried that if they intervened, the explosives could be detonated and the yacht could be blown up with them on it. David looked down from the helicopter, which was hovering above the yacht. "Do you think Dario will be okay?" he asked worriedly. Lucas replied simply, "With Dario's skill, he'll be done in under 10 minutes. That's 2 minutes gone now." Sam had been hurt, and despite the number of punches he had thrown, he hadn't hit Dario once. As he knew that Jade was safe, Dario was able to focus entirely on the fight and use all of his skill and strength. He delivered a kick to Sam's midriff, sending him sprawling across the deck of the boat. Sam was an expert martial artist, and he wasn't used to being out of his depth. He hadn't expected Dario to be so much better than him. One of his guards nervously stepped forward and aimed his weapon at Dario, but Sam kicked him away. "I don't need your help. Get out of my way. If anyone dares to interfere, I'll shoot them myself," he shouted angrily. Then he adopted a fighting stance and attacked with all his strength. His punches were fast and hard. Dario's responses were relaxed and sharp. Sam managed to grab Dario's forearm and raised his knee into his stomach. Dario exhaled hard in response and took a step backward. He glanced at his watch. "It's already been 5 minutes. Jade will be worried about me. I have to finish him off as quickly as possible," he thought. With grim resolution, he threw a well-practiced combination of blows. Sam blocked the first few strikes, but was unable to deal with the ferocity and speed of the attack, and a blow to his jaw knocked him down. He hit the deck with a thud. "I never thought that he'd be that good," he thought. He tried to get up, but Dario placed his foot on his chest and pressed down. Sam looked up at him, feeling humiliated by Dario's victorious posture. "Dario, I'll never let this go. As long as I'm breathing, I'll never stop until you're dead," he said. "It was you who sent the screenshots of the video from the hotel, wasn't it?" Dario said, looking down at Sam. "You know it was, so why are you asking?" Sam replied, staring into his enemy's eyes. "How did he investigate everything so quickly?" Sam wondered. Dario guessed at what Sam was thinking and said, "Apart from you, who else would do something so pathetically mundane?" Dario asked coldly, "He's been working relentlessly to get to me by hurting Jade. He deserves to die." Dario decided. "I sent those photos," Sam said. "But do you really think that I'm the only enemy you have? Do you think that you can relax after you dealt with me? I'll tell you this, you're living in a dream world if you think that." Dario frowned as he recognized the truth in Sam's words. This vindictive fool was never going to be able to fight against me in the Guardian Agency. There has to be someone behind it all, he thought. "Tell me who your boss is. Who's the puppet master?" Dario asked. Sam looked up at him defiantly, and Dario squatted next to him and put his strong hands around his throat. He squeezed. Sam felt like he was suffocating, but he didn't resist. He resigned himself to death and was determined not to give Dario the satisfaction of finding out any more information from him. He met Dario's eyes with a look of contempt and said in a strained voice, "I'll never tell you, Dario. No matter what you do to me, you'll just have to live in fear of when they'll strike again. It'll become an obsession." Blood trickled out of Sam's mouth as he spoke, but he still managed to smirk. "You're the one who should feel fear," Dario said, as he increased the strength in his grip. Just as he was about to end Sam's life, Dario heard the distinctive sound of gunfire and bullets ricocheting around him. He darted for cover and looked around, and he saw a masked man dressed in black. The man moved well and held his weapon skillfully. Dario hadn't noticed his arrival, and he got the distinct sense that he was a deadly foe. A group of Dario's agents from the Guardian Agency had gathered around him to make sure that Sam's mercenaries didn't decide to take Dario by surprise, and the new arrival had shot several of them. It was only Dario's quick reactions that had prevented him from being shot as well. Episode 438. It was all an act. One of the bullets fired by the mystery man had gone through Dario's sleeve, only narrowly missing his arm. His remaining agents immediately stood in front of him and formed a shield of bodies to protect him. The man in black was flanked by 4 other armed men, each moving into a covering position with well-practiced agility. The leader rushed forward and dragged Sam back to the safety of his comrades. Then they all dropped into speedboats that were waiting below and disappeared into the distance. The rescue operation was carried out with speed and efficiency. Seeing their leader escape, Sam's remaining guards jumped into lifeboats or into the water, conscious of the explosives on the boat. The first of the explosives detonated, beginning the destruction of the luxury yacht. In the water, several other speedboats arrived and started retrieving the remaining guards from the ocean. The helicopter hovered above and dropped a rope ladder near where Dario was standing. He grabbed the ladder as the helicopter rose, taking him a safe distance from the burning yacht. Dario's agents then jumped from the yacht into a Guardian Agency speedboat that had arrived to pick them up. I wonder who that masked man is, Dario thought as he climbed the ladder. Whoever he is, he's certainly a formidable enemy. The helicopter flew off towards Dario's luxury cruise ship, which was anchored a safe distance away. Jade was being looked after on the ship by a doctor and several nurses, as well as David and Lucas. Jade was surprised when Caroline entered the room, dressed in black tactical gear. She looked like a secret agent in a movie, she thought, her mouth agape. Jade was shocked to discover that Caroline was a well-trained Guardian Agency agent whom Dario had tasked with her personal security. The doctor had been checking her thoroughly when Jade heard a loud explosion in the distance. She ran out onto the deck and saw that what remained of Sam's yacht was engulfed in flames. Oh my God, what's going on? Dario is still on the yacht, she shouted, terrified for her husband's safety. Don't worry, Miss Winslet, Mr. Foster will be fine, Lucas said reassuringly. He's more than capable of looking after himself, David added with confidence that he didn't feel. You need to relax and let the doctor look after you. You've been injured, and I promised Dario that I'd take care of you. How can I relax when the last time I saw Dario, he was on that boat, she thought. She pushed them both away and rushed out onto the main deck where she could get a better view of the sinking yacht. Dario and Lucas followed close behind her. Dario! Dario! She shouted helplessly into the wind. She lost her balance and stumbled as she ran, but just as she was about to hit the hard floor, she felt a strong arm support her. She looked around, expecting to see either David or Lucas, and was shocked to find Dario staring into her eyes. Her heart thumped in her chest, and she began crying tears of joy. Dario, is it really you? She asked incredulously. She reached out her hand and stroked his face to make sure that it was really him. Then she remembered his gunshot wounds and looked at the bloodstains on his chest. Oh my God, Dario, you've lost so much blood. We need to get you to a doctor, she shrieked. It's all my fault, she thought. He took those bullets to protect me. Don't worry, I'm fine, he said, smiling. What are you crying for? David wiped her tears away as he spoke, but the tears kept flowing. He kissed her tenderly on each of her eyelids and then on her lips. You're lying. Why are you lying to me? You were shot twice and there's blood all over you. Why are you still standing here? We need to get you medical attention. Doctor, where are you? She shouted desperately. David had an amused look as he watched the interaction between husband and wife. Your wife certainly does love you, Dario, he observed. Then he turned to Jade and said, Dario hasn't been shot. He's absolutely fine. Why are you saying that? Jade asked angrily. I saw him shoot himself twice. Dario looked at her tenderly and said, You silly thing. I told you I'm fine. If you don't believe me, I'll show you. Dario began taking off his jacket and shirt. Jade turned her head away, afraid to see the wounds. But as he took off his bloodied shirt, she looked out of the corner of her eye and was shocked to see that his chest was intact. Where are the wounds? She asked as she reached out and stroked his powerful chest tentatively with her delicate hands. Lucas stepped forward and said, Miss Winslet, Mr. Foster was wearing a bulletproof vest. He was just pretending to shoot himself to save you. It was all an act. Episode 439. Guilt. I was so scared, Jade exclaimed. I felt like I was in the middle of a nightmare. The blood is fake. It was designed to trick the masked moron, David explained. Look closely. There's not a single wound on Dario's body. The bulletproof vest is made from a special material. From the outside, it looks like ordinary clothes. Ordinary bullets can't penetrate it. Jade looked closer and noticed that there were tiny bags of liquid that looked like blood on the inside of the cloth. She had seen similar tricks used on film sets. Dario is so clever. He must have planned it all in advance, she thought admiringly. She put her arms around him, hugged him tightly, and let out a sigh of relief. "Oh my God, that's so clever, but do you have any idea how much you scared me? Why didn't you tell me earlier?" she chided him. Before Dario could answer, she noticed that his expression was still tense. "Dario, if you're not hurt, then why do you look like there's something wrong? Are you hiding something from me?" She thought back to when Dario had shot himself. I saw the pain on his face. Could he really act that well? She wondered. David took the opportunity to explain. Although they were unable to penetrate Dario's bulletproof vest, the impact from the bullets was still very powerful. It could even break bones. Jade's face paled visibly, and she looked at Dario with a concerned expression. Then she turned to David suspiciously. "Broken bones?" she said faintly. "Don't listen to his nonsense," Dario said, laughing. "He's exaggerating." Jade shot David an angry look. After a little of Jade's persuasion, Dario obediently went to get looked at by the doctor. While he was being examined, he observed the marks on his wife's body. There was swelling on her cheeks and cuts on her body, and he felt a pang of guilt that he hadn't been able to protect her completely. "Why do her injuries still look sore?" Dario asked the doctor assertively. The doctor flinched at having his treatment questioned, and he replied nervously, "Miss Winslet's injuries are on the way to recovery, but the healing process can only be speeded up so much. She'll have the very best treatment available, and she'll recover fully in time." "Dario, why are you trying to blame the doctor? He's done his best to look after me, and I'm fine." Still concerned about her husband, she asked the doctor, "Can you be sure that Dario has no internal injuries or broken bones?" "I can't see any sign of internal damage at all," the doctor replied. Jade breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. After the examination, Dario carried Jade to the most luxurious room on his boat and told one of the nurses to bring some ointments for her cuts. He laid her down on the bed and diligently applied the salve, looking carefully at her reaction each time he applied more. Jade was aware of his intense observation and tried to show no discomfort as he rubbed the cream into her cuts. She watched him happily, content just to be back in his presence. As Dario finished tending her wounds, Jade threw herself into his arms and hugged him tightly. Tears once again streamed down her cheeks. "Dario, I think you're crazy, but it feels so good to be with you again. I'll never leave your side ever again," she said between sobs. Dario wiped away her tears with his hand. He still felt that he was responsible for all that she had suffered. "Jade, I missed you too. I missed you so much that I thought I was going to go crazy. It's all my fault. It's my fault that you got hurt." "No, Dario, don't ever say that again. It wasn't your fault," she said, as she shook her head stubbornly. Dario kept playing the contents of the videos back in his mind. He was unable to forget them. The images of Jade being tortured were beyond what he could bear. Jade guessed what Dario was thinking, and she tightened her embrace and kissed him on the lips. "Dario, don't ever say that again. You are the best person in the world to me. It wasn't your fault. Do you understand?" she said sternly. "I only wish there was some way I could repay him for everything he's done for me," she thought. "I wish there was something I could do that would stop him from feeling guilty." Dario was moved by her words and put his hand on the back of her head to pull her closer to him. He smelt her familiar scent and relaxed a little. "It's been too long," he thought. "I've missed her so very much. I can't imagine ever loving anyone the way that I love her." Episode 440. You Belong With Me. He hugged her so tightly that Jade felt she was about to suffocate before he finally let her go. Looking at all the different injuries on her body, his heart ached. Gently he asked, "How are you feeling? Does it still hurt?" She'd originally wanted to tell him how much it hurt when he had applied the ointment, but seeing how guilty he looked, she forced a smile and said, "It's okay, Dario. It doesn't hurt much at all anymore. The doctor said that everything will heal up just fine." She paused, considering her next words, and then asked nervously, "If you hadn't worn a bulletproof vest today, would you still have gone after Sam Jamison?" Without any hesitation, he answered, "Yes." She was stunned by his answer. So even knowing that his life was in danger, he still would have done the same thing to save me, she thought, filled with awe. He would have still taken 2 bullets for me. When the full implication of his actions hit her, she exclaimed, "Dario, please don't ever put your life in danger for me again. Don't you know how scared I was?" She had been terrified that she would lose him. When she thought about him on the deck, covered in blood after taking 2 bullets for her, it felt like her heart would shatter. Thank goodness he was wearing that vest, she thought, as her eyes filled with tears. I can't imagine living without him. She leaned into his embrace and started to cry. "Dario, please don't ever scare me like that again, okay?" she sobbed. "If you die, there is no reason for me to go on living. You're the most important person in the world to me, and I don't want to be without you." He stroked her hair and gently kissed her tears away. "Don't worry, my sweet darling. I've made sure that you'll be taken care of in case something happens to me," he replied. Jade looked up at him indignantly and pounded her fist against his chest as she retorted, "What is that supposed to mean? That you're just going to pawn me off on someone else if you die? I don't want anyone but you to take care of me. Don't you understand that?" Surprised by her negative reaction, he hurriedly explained, "You misunderstand, Jade. It's precisely because you are the most important person in the world that I've made sure you'll be well taken care of. I would never leave you to fend for yourself." Jade looked at him intently and replied, "Okay, that's enough. I'm your wife, and I want nobody but you to look after me. So that means you'll need to stop taking such crazy risks. If you don't, I'll go on strike. Do you understand?" He laughed at her outburst and said, all right. I understand, my dear wife." Then he kissed her passionately. When Jade heard him call her his wife, she smiled, and her anger evaporated, but she still gave him a final warning. "Look, this is really important to me," she reiterated. "Next time? No, there can't be a next time. You simply can't put yourself in danger like this again. Your heart belongs to me, and nobody is allowed to take it from me, including yourself." She reached out her hand and pressed it against his chest. She still felt furious when she thought about Sam aiming his gun at her husband. He could have died right there and then, she thought, shuddering and clenching her fists in anger. Thank heavens for that bulletproof vest, but who knows if he would be that lucky another time. "Right, you've got my word," Dario promised. "From now on, I'll listen to everything you say." He looked at her closely and added, "But right now, we need to look after you, okay? You look like you haven't been fed in days. I'm going to make you something to eat right now." He started to get up, but Jade grabbed his hand and pulled him back down. Although she really missed his cooking, she didn't feel right asking him to prepare a meal after what he had just gone through. Leaning against his chest, she said gently, "There's no need, Dario. I'm not hungry. All I want right now is just to spend time with you." Looking at her tired face and bloodshot eyes, he said, "You're right. You need sleep more than food." Carefully, he picked her up and carried her to the bed. As he laid her down gently, he whispered, "Go to sleep, my love. After you get some rest, everything will be better. I'm sure you haven't had a good night's sleep in days." Jade nodded. "He's right. I've hardly slept at all for the past few days," she thought. "But now I can finally relax." "Dario, you should sleep too," she suggested. "You look absolutely exhausted. Let's both get some rest." He acquiesced, knowing that she would sleep better with him there. They lay down, and he wrapped his arms around her as he whispered, "Go to sleep, my beautiful darling. I'll be right here with you, now and forever. You don't need to worry about anything." Hearing his voice and his reassuring words, Jade fell asleep quickly and easily. As soon as he heard her rhythmic breathing, Dario got up quietly and left the bedroom. He was walking unsteadily, as the severity of the recent events caught up with him. He stumbled and almost fell, but luckily, David and Lucas, who had been waiting outside, were there to catch him. "What's going on, Mr. Foster? Are you okay?" Lucas exclaimed, looking at Dario's pale face. "You didn't tell her the truth, did you?" he asked, but he already knew the answer. Dario took a deep breath and tried to stand up straight, but he quickly realized that he had no strength left. Grudgingly, he let the two men support him. "No, of course I didn't tell her the truth," he snapped. "I shot myself twice at close range, so obviously I'm injured, but Jade doesn't need to know that." According to his doctor, despite his bulletproof vest, he had sustained internal injuries and some broken bones from the force of the impact. But he had been told that he would need to undergo a more detailed examination and have some x-rays taken to know the full extent of the damage. He'd made the doctor and his assistants promise that they wouldn't breathe a word of the findings to Jade. Episode 441. Dario's Secret. Dario glanced at them coldly and said, "Just to remind you both, if you as much whisper a word about my injuries to Jade, I'll rip your heads off without hesitation." "Of course, Mr. Foster, we understand completely," Lucas replied. "But you still need to look after yourself and follow the doctor's orders. He was very clear that you need to rest and avoid all strenuous activity for the next few days." "Yeah, maybe you and Miss Winslet should sleep in separate beds for a while," David added flippantly. "You don't need to worry about that," Dario replied, shooting him an angry look. He didn't like to be mocked, and he didn't appreciate David making fun of his injuries. "Just because this is the first time I've ever gotten seriously injured doesn't mean he can take advantage of the opportunity to assert his superiority," Dario thought, frowning. After Jade had fallen asleep, he had taken stock of his injuries again, particularly the impact point where the bullets had hit his vest. "I'm pretty sure there is internal bleeding where those things made contact," he thought, wincing at the pain. "But the body is tough and I've got a will of steel. As long as I take it easy, I'll be healed up in a couple of weeks." Although he would never admit it to David, keeping his hands off Jade would be the hardest part of his recovery. "Why don't you let Caroline take care of Miss Winslet while you recover?" Lucas suggested, but Dario just shook his head and walked into the kitchen, where he took a swig of the prescription medicine the doctor had provided. "Just remember to keep your mouth shut," he said as he began to prepare a meal for Jade. The fridge was stocked with fresh ingredients, and he quickly lost himself in the task of cooking. An hour later, Jade woke up to find that Dario wasn't next to her anymore. She looked around confused until the familiar scent of delicious food reminded her of where she was. She smiled and thought, "I'm really lucky to be married to such an amazing guy. He's been through so much, and he's still out there cooking for me." Just then the door opened, and Dario poked his head in. "Get up, lovely. It's time for something to eat," he said, smiling. He was carrying a plate that he carefully placed on the bedside table. Jade quickly jumped out of bed, unconcerned about her bare feet on the cold floor. She stepped up next to Dario and hugged him tightly. He smiled down at her and pinched her nose. When he noticed her feet, he waggled his finger and chastised her. "Put some shoes on. How many times have I told you not to walk around barefoot? You'll catch a cold." As he spoke, he took out a pair of cute bunny slippers and put them on her feet. Jade laughed and hugged him even more tightly. "Dario, you need to stop spoiling me like this," she admonished him. "I'm starting to think that you're trying to turn me into a pampered little princess so nobody else will be able to stand me. I never believed in my wildest dreams that someone like him would walk into my life," she thought, smiling gratefully. "He loves me, takes care of me, spoils me, and treats me like I'm the most important person in his life. I guess I must have earned some good karma somewhere along the line to meet a man like him." "I'm not too worried about who can stand you, seeing how I'm never leaving your side," Dario told her, smiling broadly. "I'm afraid you're stuck with me for good." He looked into her beautiful eyes and kissed her forehead tenderly, and then her nose. "I just can't get enough of this wonderful woman," he thought. "Now, stop talking and eat, will you?" he ordered, as he grabbed a pillow so she could lean against him more comfortably. "I made you some oatmeal to start because you haven't eaten in so long. It will be easy on your stomach. Say ah and open wide." He held a spoonful of oatmeal to her mouth like he was coaxing a child, which made her laugh. "Dario, I'm old enough to eat by myself," she said, grabbing the bowl. But Dario refused to let go. Looking at her seriously, he said, "You've got two options. I'll either feed you with a spoon or with my hands. You decide." Jade sighed and shrugged helplessly. If he's insisting on feeding me, I better go with the first option, because he's certainly capable of exercising the second one, she thought, grimacing. Obediently, she lay back down and opened her mouth to let the spoon in. After she had eaten a few bites, she looked at him closely and asked, "Dario, tell me the truth. Are you really okay? You took 2 bullets and not even a bulletproof vest can protect you from injury at such close range. I think you should go to the hospital and get checked out more thoroughly." She felt a bit nervous pushing him like this, but she was quite concerned about his health. He stroked her cheek and replied, "Don't worry, I'm fine, really. I had several doctors look me over and I trust their professional opinion. Now, Let's focus on getting more food into you. He shoveled another spoon of oatmeal into her mouth, shortcutting further conversation, but Jade was still worried. I'm going to ask his doctors myself what's going on, she thought, still feeling like Dario wasn't telling her the whole truth. I'm getting full, she told him, and then asked, but what have you eaten lately? Her heart ached when she looked at his pale and haggard face. She had never seen him look so tired and run down. He was a far cry from the high-spirited, handsome man she had known just a few days earlier. I'm not hungry, he replied. I just want you to eat and feel better. Episode 442, The Honeymoon Surprise. Jade gave him a stern look and replied, I'm not eating anything else unless you do too. Dario chuckled and said, Fine, we can both feed each other. You take a bite, and then I will. No deal, she retorted, as she snatched the spoon from his hand. I'll feed you first. With a satisfied smile, she ladled some food into his mouth. As he chewed, she reflected on how good it felt to watch him eat. It's almost better than eating by myself, she thought. No wonder he likes feeding me so much. When they had both eaten their fill, Dario suggested, Let me draw a bath for you, and then you can go to sleep. When you wake up tomorrow morning, you'll have forgotten everything that happened today. Jade nodded and then asked, Can you stay with me? I'm sure I'll sleep a lot more soundly with you next to me. After her bath, when she was about to grab his hand and pull him into bed, the door opened, and she was surprised to see David. Where did you suddenly come from, Mr. Swan? She asked, nonplussed. David didn't respond. Instead, he looked at Dario and asked, Why aren't you laying down? I thought you were supposed to be resting and recovering from your injuries. With a small smirk, he added, Maybe lying in bed with Miss Winslet isn't all that restful. It may even lead to some of that strenuous exercise you're supposed to be avoiding. Jade was confused by David's comments, particularly the one about exercising. Hesitatingly, she asked, Why do you say that Dario can't do strenuous exercise? Why not? I thought the doctor said that he was fine. Hearing her questions, Dario shot David a murderous look. One more word and I'll kill you, he thought, glaring at David, who immediately tried to backpedal. Of course he's fine, Miss Winslet, he assured her hurriedly. I just meant that he's had insomnia for the past few days, which is why he's looking so tired. That and his internal injuries. What internal injuries? Jade exclaimed anxiously. Dario, why didn't you tell me? Gently, she patted his chest, as if trying to make sure that he was whole. Dario held her hand and started to reassure her that everything was fine, but then he looked at David and spat out 2 words. Get lost. Watching his intense reaction, Jade wondered if David had been telling the truth, so she asked again, Mr. Swan, please be honest. Is Dario badly hurt? Does he need to go to the hospital? David looked at Dario, taking in his menacing expression. He looks like he's ready to pounce, he thought. Smiling awkwardly, he said, No, Miss Winslet, I was just joking. I mean, just look at Mr. Foster. He looks like he could run a marathon. Anyway, I've got things to do, so I need to run. Lovely talking with you. With those words, David closed the door and hurried off. He knew that Dario would kill him if he stayed any longer. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, he muttered, That guy is something else. I can't believe he's lying like that. Well, his injuries will catch up with him sooner or later, and then he'll be sorry. Still mumbling to himself, he walked away. After David left, Dario immediately locked the door. When he turned around, he saw Jade looking at him worriedly, her gaze filled with guilt. Dario, this is all my fault, she whispered, as tears began running down her cheeks. You got hurt because of me. Before she could say anything else, he had grabbed her and was kissing her so fiercely that it felt like he was trying to swallow her whole. Now conscious of his state, Jade didn't dare to respond. She just lay still and hoped that he would stop. But Dario knew every part of her body by now, and within minutes, her face was flushed and she was panting. Reluctantly, he stopped his seduction and said, You should really get some sleep. Jade replied nervously, How am I supposed to sleep knowing that you're not okay? Well, if you don't sleep very soon, I'll be getting some of that exercise I'm supposed to be avoiding, he joked. Hearing his comment, Jade felt even more guilty, so she moved away from him and settled down to sleep. Despite trying to stay awake, Dario wasn't far behind her. He had only had 2 or 3 hours sleep over the previous few days, and he was utterly exhausted. Within minutes, He had also fallen into a deep slumber. When they woke up the next morning, Dario had a surprise for her. "Guess what?" he said shortly after she had opened her eyes. She blinked at him sleepily, unsure what he was talking about. "We're going on a trip," he exclaimed with a big smile. He had decided that they needed a break after the ordeal they had just been through, so he planned to take Jade on their long overdue honeymoon. "I'm taking you to Palm Springs for some beach time and relaxation," he said, giving her a hug and a kiss. "Dario, that sounds wonderful," she agreed, but then she frowned. "What about my work?" she asked. "I can't just drop everything and walk away." "I just sent a text to Caroline asking her to arrange leave for you," he replied. "I'm sure it won't be a problem, especially given that you're hurt and you need some time to recover." Episode 444, The Toy Crane. She quickly took a step back and shook her head. "No, Dario, Mr. Swan said that you should rest and that you're not allowed any intense exercise." She reminded him, but he ignored her and continued to nuzzle her earlobe. He seemed oblivious to the people around them, some of whom gave them curious glances. "Oh, we can work around that limitation," he said, chuckling. "The doctor said I can't do intense exercise, but that doesn't mean you can't. I'll simply let you do all the hard work." Jade didn't think her face could turn any redder. Covering her blazing cheeks with her hands, she asserted, "Dario, I said no. You know that it will only delay your recovery, so we need to sleep in separate rooms for the next while." He didn't like her answer at all. "That won't do," he exclaimed. "I want to sleep with you." But Jade stood her ground. "You know that it's the right thing to do, so you'll just need to behave yourself for a bit." Playfully, they argued back and forth for a while, oblivious to the stare they were drawing from onlookers. Jade realized that she'd become a lot more comfortable acting as part of a couple in public. Along the way, Dario had bought her some delicious coconut ice cream, but when he stopped again to buy some popcorn, she grabbed his arm and said, "Please don't buy any more food. I'm worried I'm going to get fat if you keep feeding me like this, and Caroline will definitely be annoyed if that happens." "She won't dare to scold you with me around," he retorted, as he grabbed a handful of the sweet-smelling popcorn and held it up in front of her face. "Here, you really need to try this. It's delicious." Jade's eyes lit up at the scent, but she still shook her head. "Nope, I'm not going to eat any," she reiterated. David and Lucas, who were trailing the couple at a discreet distance, were watching them with growing envy. Even Lucas, who came across as a cold fish, was moved by their obvious love for one another. "Those two are sappy enough to make me nauseous," David scoffed as he bought another round of junk food. Eating helped him deal with his feelings of jealousy. "I think it's about time for me to find myself a beautiful girlfriend." Lucas looked at him indifferently and glanced at the many women who were walking around the market. "There are plenty of opportunities right here if you want to meet someone," he commented dryly. David looked around and then shook his head. "Nah, I've already met the woman of my dreams," he said, "and she would get angry if I were to take up with someone else." "I doubt that," Lucas replied. "Your dream woman doesn't care if you're alive," he added callously. David cringed at his comment and then got angry. "Don't be an ass," he snapped. "We're supposed to be working as a team here, so don't go around insulting me if you expect me to have your back." With those words, he stalked off. As they continued to stroll around the market, Jade's attention was caught by a large group of people crowded around a big box. When she got closer, she realized that it was some kind of toy crane like the one she'd seen at the fair when she was a child. There were hundreds of toys inside, ranging from tiny to quite large. On closer inspection, she noticed that this toy crane was different from the ones she'd seen before. Instead of the usual claw with 2 fingers that could be maneuvered to pick up items, this one had all the toys suspended by strings that had to be cut with a pair of scissors. "Wow, that looks really hard," she exclaimed. As she examined the different toys in the box, she noticed a large, cute doll, and her face broke into a smile. "Look at that doll," she called out to Dario. "I'd love to get it, but it has an extra thick string that must be really difficult to cut." To be sure, several people had already tried for this particular prize and had wasted quite a bit of money, but nobody had been successful so far. Dario looked at Jade's smiling face and then at the doll. Although any kind of toy seemed frivolous to him, he wanted to make her happy, so he asked, "Would you like me to get it for you?" She giggled and replied, "Yes, I'd love that, but I think this game is rigged, so nobody can actually win it. You could just be wasting your money." Without responding, he walked over to the crane and dropped a few coins in the slot. Using the 2 buttons, he maneuvered the scissors to the thick string holding the prize and started cutting it systematically. Before long, the string gave way, and the doll dropped into the collection tray. Jade was stunned, as were the people watching Dario's efforts. When the toy landed in the tray, everyone applauded in unison. "Oh my goodness, did you see that?" someone exclaimed. "That guy just scored the main prize." "That's unbelievable," another onlooker responded. "I've been trying for an hour, and I've wasted almost $50. Jade was beside herself with delight when Dario handed her the doll. "You are incredible," she said, as she threw her arms around him. "You must have played this game before to be so good at it." Dario didn't reply, not wanting to dispel her illusion. He had actually never done anything like that before, but he was pleased with the outcome. "Anything to make you happy, my love?" he said, smiling. "Since you're so good with those scissors, do you want to try your luck again?" David asked mockingly as he stepped up next to them. "I'd really like that little teddy bear." He was still annoyed because of Lucas's earlier comment and needed to take his anger out on someone. "Let's see if he's actually good at this game, or if he just got lucky," he thought scornfully. Episode 445. You're the best. Dario would usually have ignored David's request, but he wanted Jade to be pleased with him, so he put 2 more coins in the toy crane. He carefully assessed the position of the teddy, and after a few slight movements, it dropped into the tray below. He threw the bear to David disdainfully. No, I didn't mean that one. I wanted the rabbit to give to Caroline," David said, waving the bear with a dissatisfied look on his face. "I don't want it," Caroline said coldly. "Then give it to Lucas," David replied. "I don't want it either," said Lucas. David felt embarrassed. He spotted a young girl who looked about 5 years old and said, "Hello there. Tell this man if you would like that cuddly rabbit." As he spoke, he pointed toward the rabbit. The girl nodded and looked longingly at the cuddly toy. "Like it a lot," she said in a cute voice. "Did you hear that, Dario? This girl would like it, and you don't want to disappoint the little girl, do you?" "Ah, look how cute she is, Dario. Maybe you could get it for her?" Jade said. "How could I deny my lovely wife's request?" He whispered in her ear, and then he kissed her on the lips. Dario put 2 more coins in the machine and looked carefully at the rabbit's position. "There's no way he'll do it again," David thought. "Not 3 times in a row." A few moments later, the rabbit dropped down. There were gasps of appreciation from the people who had gathered to watch. "How is he doing that? I think that's the 3rd one he's won in a row. He must have cheated." "No, you can't cheat the machine. I think the toys can see how good looking he is, and they want him to take them home. He's so handsome. If I was in that machine, I'd let him win." The man who owned the toy crane came rushing toward them and said, "Please, don't take all my prizes. I'm only a small business owner, and I can't afford it." Dario ignored the man and bent down to hand the rabbit to the little girl, who was standing with wide eyes and looking expectantly at him. She took the toy happily and then wrapped her small arms around his neck and kissed him on the cheek. "Thank you so much," she said. "You're amazing." "You're welcome," he replied. "But remember not to wander around kissing random strangers. I think you've made that beautiful lady there jealous," he added, as he pointed at Jade. The child looked up at Jade and said, "Don't be jealous. I won't snatch him away. I'm going back to my mummy now." The girl ran back to her mother, happily cuddling her new toy. Mummy, look, that nice man won a rabbit for me," she squealed in delight. "Wow, that's wonderful, honey," the mum replied as she smiled at Dario and Jade. Jade smiled back as she watched the little girl with her mum, chatting happily. The image of them made her think of starting a family with Dario. "I wonder if we'll be as happy as they are," she thought. Dario guessed what was on her mind and grinned. "Are you thinking of having our own children? Let's make one tonight." Jade glared at him. "Do you have to be so direct? Someone might hear you." "Okay, next time, we'll talk about it when there's no one around," he whispered into her ear. Jade felt embarrassed, but her hand rested on her stomach and she smiled at the thought of having a baby. "If we had a child, we'd be a complete family," she thought. "How the hell did you do that, Dario? Are you even human? Did you bribe the machine?" David asked incredulously. He then put some coins in himself and tried to win a toy but failed. His frustration was growing, and he tried repeatedly. After 10 failed attempts, he looked around red-faced. They all watched in amusement, and there were several snickers from the people nearby. Jade hugged Dario's neck and whispered, "You're the best." Dario put his lips to her ear and said quietly, "I want to satisfy you later. Tell me what I can do to satisfy you." Jade blushed. "Don't speak like that when we're in public," she chided him. "If you say anything else, I'll be very angry with you." Why does he have to embarrass me like that? She thought. Okay, then you can be angry with me. I'll just have to work harder tonight to put you in a good mood, he said suggestively. She glared at him furiously and sped up so that she was walking in front of him. Dario followed closely behind, smiling. They were an extremely handsome couple, and they attracted a lot of attention from passers-by. Women looked at Dario with obvious interest, while men observed Jade with hungry looks. David remained sullen and began to regret joining them on vacation. If I had known it was going to be like this, I would have flown back to New York to look for Monica, he thought grumpily. Later that day, when they returned to the hotel room, Jade lay on the bed and hugged her prize happily. Dario looked at his wife fondly and said, "You really like that toy, don't you?" "It's because it's a gift from you. You won it for me, so I cherish it," she replied. Dario took the doll from her and placed it by the bed. He then maneuvered himself into the position where the toy had been moments before. Episode 446. You can do the hard work. I've been waiting for this for too long, Dario thought as he cuddled up to his wife. He knew that Jade was too embarrassed to even flirt with him in front of other people, but he hoped that things would be different once they were alone together. He leaned toward her and said in a deep, sexy voice, "I want you to tell me that you like it when we have sex." Jade blushed instantly and looked at him shyly. I know what he wants, she thought. She thought back to what David had said about her husband not exerting himself, and she pushed him away. "Dario, I'm hungry. We should have dinner," she said, in an attempt to distract him. He lay on top of her and whispered in her ear, "I'm hungry too. I think I should eat you." Dario knew that Jade wasn't hungry. She'd eaten a lot of food while they'd been out, and he wasn't worried about her having a lack of energy. He brushed his lips up against her ear and breathed softly, safe in the knowledge that it never failed to turn her on. He's doing this on purpose, Jade thought, trying to control her urges. "Your injuries aren't fully healed yet," she said. "You can't do intense exercise. I promise I'll do it with you when you're fully recovered." "It's fine," he said. "I'll just lie still. You can do all the hard work." "But I'm hungry," she replied. "I need to eat. You don't care about me at all, do you?" Jade pushed him away, afraid that if he continued blowing in her ear, she wouldn't be able to control herself. "Let's eat first. Maybe we can carry on afterward. You can cook us something nice," she said. I know what she's trying to do. She's playing for time, but I can beat her at that game, he thought, as he obediently went out to cook them some food. Half an hour later, he returned with a delicious-looking meal. Jade smiled appreciatively and proceeded to eat slowly. "Dario, your cooking skills are getting better and better," she said as she savored a piece of chicken. "You're eating very slowly," Dario observed as he wiped a bit of sauce from the corner of her mouth. "Now, are you full yet? Shall we continue with where we left off?" he asked. Jade was still eating when Dario started to touch her. He moved his hands sensually around her firm body. Despite her attempts not to, her body responded to his touch, and she shivered with pleasure. He sensed her pleasure and felt encouraged to go on. "Dario, you're insatiable," she said. "Do you ever stop thinking about sex?" "I think I'm possessed by a demon. I just can't control myself when I'm with you," he replied. He pulled her onto his lap so that she was sitting on him. Even through their layers of clothing, she could clearly feel his arousal. Dario reached into her blouse while kissing her earlobes and biting them gently. He knew where her erogenous zones were, and he could sense the effect he was having on her. Jade was shocked when she involuntarily let out a gasp of pleasure. "Dario, don't. I want to go out for a walk," she said in a trembling voice, but she made no effort to move away. Instead, she leaned into his warm body. "Don't go, Jade," he whispered. "I haven't seen you for so long, and I missed you so much." He blew softly into her ear again, and she moaned. Jade's mind told her to stop him, but her body felt a need to be with him. She tried half-heartedly to get up, but Dario pressed down on her body and kept touching her. Jade was breathing heavily. "Dario, if you want to do it, you must promise to lie back and not move. Let me be on top." Jade couldn't believe what she was saying. "I've never done it like that," she thought excitedly. She felt a sense of her own power as Dario obeyed her instructions and lay on his back. At first, Dario kept still and let Jade move, but his excitement soon took over and his back arched rhythmically. He just can't be still, she thought, worried about how his body would react. Despite her own desire, she got off him and said, "It's too much for you, Dario. It's too soon. Let's go to sleep." Dario did his best to persuade her, but her mind was made up. "Jade, come on. I'm too frustrated to sleep," he pleaded. "No, Dario. I'm tired and I can't keep awake. If you continue pestering me, you'll have to spend the night somewhere else." Eventually, he relented and resigned himself to sleep. They spent several more days at Palm Springs. After their forced separation, it was a period of bonding for them, and they both cherished their time together. They shopped, played games, ate snacks, and went out for meals, doing many things for the first time together. Episode 447. Jade's mother returns. One day, they were relaxing on a small boat in a man-made lake when Jade got a phone call from the hospital informing her that her grandmother wanted to see her. She was worried that she had taken a turn for the worse, so she asked Dario to take her back to Washington. He arranged for a private plane that evening. As it took around 6 hours to get there, he suggested they do an overnight flight. Jade was very worried about her grandma, and she wished that she could get back sooner. "Try not to worry," Dario said. "Let's eat before we go." "Do you think that something's happened to Grandma?" Jade asked worriedly. The lady from the hospital sounded very serious. "You haven't seen her for a long time. Your grandma probably just misses you," he replied. Jade nodded. "Ever since I started filming, I've been so busy with work and flying all over the place that I haven't made time to see her," she thought. "She must feel like I've abandoned her." She felt a little ashamed. "I've neglected her, but I can make up for it by going to see her now," she decided. As soon as they arrived in Washington the following day, Dario ensured that Jade was wearing large sunglasses and a hat to hide her identity. He returned to the Milliken Agency building and instructed Caroline to take Jade to the hospital. Caroline was under orders to ensure Jade's safety, while also taking every precaution to prevent the paparazzi from discovering her whereabouts. When Jade arrived at the hospital, she quickly walked to her grandmother's room, fearing the worst. "Grandma, I'm here," she said as she entered the room. "What's happened? Why did you ask for me to come and see you?" The old woman's eyes lit up when she saw her granddaughter's familiar face. "Jade, you're here," she said excitedly. "Come over. Your mum is here to see you." For a moment, Jade was too shocked to respond. She looked at her grandma with wide eyes. The woman standing next to her grandmother looked about 40 years old. She had wavy hair and was dressed in professional-looking clothes. "Hello, Jade," she said politely. "I'm Charlotte, your mum." She looks so beautiful, Charlotte thought. "I think we look quite alike, actually." Jade felt unable to speak. "I haven't seen my mother in over 20 years, she thought. Now she just turns up out of the blue. She can't expect me to call her mum. Then a memory suddenly occurred to her. I remember her face from somewhere. I bumped into her in the hospital a few months ago. Fate does like to play strange tricks on people. She felt a strange mix of emotions. She had thought about her mother so many times over the years. There were things she wanted to say to her, but the words just wouldn't come out. It was Charlotte who finally broke the silence. "Oh, Mum, I just remembered that I have work that I need to do, so I must really get going," she said awkwardly to Iris. Jade's grandmother glared at her and said, "Charlotte, what are you doing? You've finally got the chance to speak to your daughter after all these years. Surely you're not just going to leave like that? How can you be so thoughtless?" Jade felt a sense of rejection. Does she really not want to see me? She wondered. She only met me for a few seconds and now she wants to go. Maybe she doesn't like me. For so many years, Jade had envied those children who had a father and a mother to love them. No matter what bad things people said about her, I always believed that my mum must have loved me, Jade thought. I always thought that it must have been hard for her to give me up. But maybe that was all just my imagination. Maybe I just believed what I wanted to believe. "Forget it, Grandma. If she doesn't want to see me, let her go," Jade said, feeling a great sadness in her heart. "Don't say that, Jade.
Charlotte, is your mum. Of course she wants to see you, Iris said. Then the old woman looked at her daughter and said, Charlotte, do you know what you're doing? Do you have any idea how much Jade has suffered over the years? On top of that, if it wasn't for Jade, I would have died from my illness long ago. It's one thing if you have no feelings for her father, but you should do your duty as a mother. She's your family. Jade listened to her grandmother with her eyes wide open. She'd never heard her speak like that about her father. Did Charlotte not love my dad? Jade wondered. What does that mean for me? Did they love each other when they had me? Maybe they didn't want me. Mum, it's not what you think, Charlotte exclaimed. Every time you come, you avoid Jade, and it's just not right, whatever your reasons are, Iris said angrily. Grandma, don't be agitated, Jade said. Anyway, I haven't had a mother since I was young. I'm already used to it. Jade went forward and held her grandmother's hand. How did such a good family come to this? Iris asked sadly. Charlotte, what do you want to do? I know you're suffering, but no matter how hard it is, you need to take this opportunity to get to know your daughter. Mum, don't say anything, Charlotte said. Of course, I want to get to know her, and I remember everything you've told me about her. Grandma, it's okay. You're the only family I need, said Jade, hiding the pain that it caused her to feel rejected by her mother. Mum, let me talk to Jade alone. I owe her for all the time we've missed, and I'll make sure that I make it up to her, Charlotte said. Jade looked at her grandmother and could see how much it meant to her. I do want to know why she abandoned me, Jade thought. She nodded reluctantly, stepped forward, and adjusted her grandmother's covers before following Charlotte out of the room. Episode 448. A Desire for Revenge. The two of them went to the end of the corridor, where it was quiet. There was a gentle breeze coming in through an open window. Charlotte stared intently at Jade but didn't speak for what felt like a long time. There was guilt in her eyes, and she seemed to be struggling with what to say. Finally, she took a deep breath and said, Jade, I'm really very sorry. I'm sorry that I wasn't there for you as a mother when you were growing up. Jade was surprised at the sudden apology, but she kept her expression neutral. I just want to know why you abandoned me all those years ago, she said. The suffering Jade had endured at the hands of her aunt and uncle flashed back to her, and she felt a surge of anger at her mother for leaving her in their care. Jade, I know that you suffered a lot these years. I'll make sure that I make it up to you, Charlotte said seriously. I don't want your compensation. I just want to know why you abandoned me, Jade said. Didn't you want to see me? And why did you want to talk to me on my own? She asked. Her voice was calm, but she clenched her fists tightly in frustration. What does this woman want? Jade thought. Why did she abandon me? Charlotte looked at her daughter. There were things that she wanted to say, but she felt unable to say them. She was racked with guilt and a sense of helplessness. Jade, I let you down. I don't know how to find the words to tell you everything, but believe me, I will make it up to you. I haven't seen my mum in over 20 years, and she hasn't even asked me anything about myself or how I've been. Is this really all she has to say to me? Jade thought sadly. I can't see any trace of love or warmth in her eyes. What do you mean that you'll make it up to me? I've lived without a mother for over 20 years. I don't need some form of compensation. I just want to know the truth, Jade said, trying her best not to let her emotions show. Jade, sooner or later, you'll know the truth, Charlotte said, avoiding her daughter's eyes. Then a grim determination showed on the older woman's face, and she took Jade's hand in hers. Jade, help me to do something. If you help me to destroy the Stevens group, I'll tell you the whole truth. What has the Stevens group got to do with all this? Jade wondered. The Stevens family has a lot to answer for, Charlotte said animatedly.
She didn't notice that Jade's face seemed tired and sad. So, Jade thought, the only reason that my mum came to see me was so that I could help her destroy the Stevens group. She pulled her hand out of her mother's grip and said coldly, "Sorry, but I can't do that. I wouldn't be able to even if I wanted to." "Jade, what are you talking about?" Charlotte said. "Of course you can. I saw on the news that Dario Foster declared his love for you. With someone like that behind you, you can do almost anything." Jade felt an overwhelming sense of sadness. So that really is why she's here. My mum has only come to find me after all these years to use me to hurt someone else. Charlotte reached out for Jade's hand again, seemingly unaware of her daughter's sadness. "So this is why you wanted to talk to me alone," Jade said incredulously. "What if you hadn't seen that Dario wanted to pursue me? If you thought I didn't have the influence to ruin the Stevens group, would you still have wanted to see me? Or would you have turned around and left when you knew I was coming?" Who would have imagined, Jade thought bitterly, that I walked past my own mother in this hospital and she didn't even recognize me. She didn't even know what I look like. She doesn't deserve to be a mother. Charlotte looked at Jade and said, "The Stevens family have done some terrible things. They need to pay for what they've done. Did you know that if it wasn't for them, I would never have given you up? It was all because of them." There was obvious hatred in her eyes when Charlotte spoke about the Stevens family, and Jade began to wonder what had happened all those years before. She hadn't known that her mother and the Stevens family were so entangled. Charlotte grabbed her hand again and said excitedly, "Jade, if you promise to help me, I'll tell you everything, okay? And I'll make it all up to you." Jade thought carefully. She must have investigated the Fosters and discovered how influential they are, and then made a plan to come here and persuade me to help her destroy the Stevens group by using the Fosters' family power and influence for protection. After all these years that we've missed together, that's all she cares about. Jade looked at her doubtfully. "So, did you come to find me after you found out that Dario wanted a relationship with me?" "No, Jade, it wasn't like that. Actually, I care about you a lot. I'm glad that you have someone like Dario Foster chasing after you. He's handsome and rich, and he's someone who can protect you in life," Charlotte said. "If you can just ask him to destroy the Stevens family business," Jade said, finishing off her mother's sentence. "Is that what you want me to do? You want me to use him?" Charlotte looked at her daughter with an embarrassed expression. Jade continued, "Let me get this right. You want me to get close to Dario Foster so that I can use his power and influence for you. What if Dario was an old man or nasty or ugly? Would you still want me to get close to him then and use him to help you get the revenge you want?" She felt a deep sadness at the realization that her own mother, after so many years, wanted her to use Dario to help her fulfill her own desire for vengeance. Episode 449. She nearly died. My own mother feels like a complete stranger to me, Jade thought. If she hadn't heard about me on the news, why would she have any interest in seeing me? Jade wondered. Charlotte began to see her daughter's anger and tried to explain. "Jade, you're misunderstanding me. I really do care about you." Jade pushed her away and said coldly, "Enough, don't say any more. I already understand why it is that you're here and what you want from me." "No, Jade, you really don't understand," Charlotte said desperately. "I know I've let you down, and I'm sorry that I haven't seen you for all those years. But I've also been wronged, and I want the people who wronged both of us to get what they deserve." Jade looked at her mother with disdain. "I'm not a little naive girl anymore," she thought. "I'm not going to be manipulated by this woman." "Jade, don't be angry with me. Would you like to have dinner together at Mum's place? Or you could stay at mine for a few days? I don't think you live at the Winslet house anymore. Do you have a place to stay?" "You don't have to worry about where I live," Jade replied, irritated at the suggestion. "Jade, are you still blaming me? It's understandable that they don't want to live with me,
But I want you to know that I have a house now, and you're welcome to live with me. I can take care of you now." "Take care of me?" Jade repeated incredulously. "If you wanted to take care of me, you should have done that when I was a child, but you never came to find me. All I want from you now is the truth, but the only reason you're here is that you want to use me to help you get revenge." "I'm so disappointed in you," she added. "Do you even have a heart, Charlotte? Do you really not care at all that I'm your daughter? I don't ever want to see you again. I haven't seen you for the last 20 years, so I won't miss you now." "I know that you don't want anything to do with me right now," Charlotte replied. "But if you ever need anything, this is my business card. You can contact me anytime you like." As she spoke, she took a card out of her bag and handed it to Jade with a sad look in her eyes. Then she turned around and walked away. Jade held the business card in a daze. After a few moments, she looked at it and realized that her mother was the owner of a clothing store. The store wasn't a well-known company. I suppose the owner of a small store couldn't possibly hope to compete with the power of the Stevens Group. That must be why she came looking for me to help with her revenge, Jade thought. Jade was about to throw the card in the trash, but she put it in her bag and went back to her grandmother's room. "How are you? What did your mum say to you?" Iris asked as her granddaughter walked through the door. "She didn't say much at all. She's gone now," Jade replied noncommittedly. "The weather is nice today, Grandma. Shall we go out for a walk?" Jade felt guilty about how long it had been since she had last seen her grandmother. Although Iris would never blame her for not coming out often enough, Jade felt that she should make more of an effort to spend time with her. "She's the only proper family I have," Jade thought. The nurse brought a wheelchair over to the bed and helped Iris into it. Although she was still able to walk, she tired quickly. Jade pushed her along the corridor and out into the warm sunshine. Iris noticed that Jade seemed distracted, and she sighed. "Jade, don't be too hard on your mum. She's had a lot to deal with in her life. The Stevens family caused her a lot of pain," she said in a sad voice. "Grandma, what does the Stevens family have to do with any of it?" Jade asked. "Bruce has caused me quite a few problems," she thought. Could it be that Charlotte had to put up with similar things? Iris sighed again, and then she explained. "Your mum was in a relationship with a young man called Jack Stevens." "I've never heard of Jack Stevens," thought Jade. "I was with Bruce for a long time, but I never really met many of his relatives other than Amelia. I wonder if Jack is Ray's brother. That would make him Bruce's uncle." Iris continued. "Your mum and Jack had a good relationship, but the Stevens family looked down on your mum. They felt she wasn't good enough for Jack. Jack wanted to be with your mum, but he didn't stick up for her. In the end, your mum became so sad about it that she broke up with Jack, and she met your father." Jade was surprised to hear about what her mother had endured. "This secret has been hidden for too long," Iris thought. "She's grown up now, and she deserves to know her own history. After your mum and Jack broke up, the Stevens family didn't let it rest there," Iris said. "They were afraid that the relationship would rekindle, and they took measures to make sure that didn't happen. They sent people to humiliate and mock her. They took photos and videos of her to embarrass her. Charlotte became depressed, and she almost killed herself. In the end, she left Washington with your father. He stood by her side." Jade stopped with the wheelchair under a tree and sat on a bench in the shade. Iris took her hand. "Later on, your mum got pregnant and married your father, but the Stevenses continued watching her. They were worried that she was pregnant with Jack's child. They tried to pressure her to have an abortion. They even sent people to beat her up." Iris glanced at Jade with a look of sympathy. "Your mum did everything she could to protect you," she said emotionally. "She even moved to different cities to try and escape those pursuing her. Those bastards were afraid that Charlotte was going to have a baby so that she could make a claim on the Stevens family assets in the future. When your mum gave birth to you, she was too scared even to go to a hospital. She found a midwife in a little cottage in the country. It was a very difficult birth. She nearly died.
Episode 450. Life's a Tough Journey. Iris cried as she told Jade about how Charlotte had been treated by the Stevens family. No wonder Charlotte was so desperate to destroy the Stevens family business, Jade thought. How could anyone be so cruel to a pregnant woman?
Jade, your mum didn't want to give you up,
Iris explained gently.
She was forced to. She knew that if you stayed together, she would be putting you in danger.
Jade felt deep sorrow, both for her own loss and for what her mother had endured. I want to hear this from Charlotte. I want to hear what she has to say about all of this. She owes me an explanation, Jade thought. Even if all that's true, Grandma, she shouldn't try to use her daughter to get revenge, Jade said. Also, the Stevenses can't still be out to get her after all these years. Why hasn't she come to see me sooner? I could never use Dario to get revenge on people, Jade thought. I just couldn't do that to him.
Jade, your mother has been leading a very tough life ever since she gave you up. If she didn't want you, why would she have endured such hardships and taken such risks to have you? Give her a little more time. She will learn how to be a mother. I believe in her.
Okay, Grandma. I think you're tired now. You should rest, Jade said. She felt a complicated mix of emotions, and she wasn't sure how to feel about Charlotte. Jade took Iris back to her room and decided to stay with her grandmother a bit longer. Caroline had been waiting for her all this time, and she told her that she should leave her on her own at the hospital. But Caroline was afraid to let her out of her sight after the kidnapping, and she insisted on shadowing her closely. In the CEO's office at the Milliken Agency building, Dario was diligently reading through scripts that his assistant had brought to him, and he was very exacting with what he was looking for. He hadn't found any of the scripts to be suitable, and he discarded them as soon as he found something he disliked. Lucas looked dumbfounded. Surely this is too menial a job for the CEO, he thought.
Mr. Foster, you would never usually sift through the scripts yourself. Are you sure you don't want me to get someone else to do that for you?
Dario didn't acknowledge the question. He carried on reading with his head lowered, and then he asked,
Have you done what I asked you to do? Yes, Mr. Foster. The Winslets will be finished sooner or later, he replied.
Dario nodded very slightly in acknowledgement and continued reading the script in his hands. Lucas looked on confused. Then a thought occurred to him. The Milliken Agency's film and television group had decided to launch an online drama series that would potentially go on for years. The board of directors had given their support to the idea, and they were taking the matter very seriously. The cost of making the series was going to be low, and it was hoped that the returns would be high.
Mr. Foster, why are you taking such care with picking the script? Lucas asked. Do you want Miss Winslet to star in the drama series? Didn't you say that there was going to be a vote online for who would play the lead role? The process is very transparent. Surely there's no way of guaranteeing that Miss Winslet would win the vote. Do you think Jade can't do it?
Dario asked with raised eyebrows. Lucas thought about it carefully.
I'm not saying that. Miss Winslet's acting skills are excellent and her popularity is high. It's just that there will be a lot of other big names vying for the main part. Even if I didn't support her from behind the scenes, I believe she could do it,
Dario said confidently.
All I'm going to do is sign her up. The rest she'll achieve by herself.
Lucas realized then that his fears were unfounded.
No wonder Miss Winslet fell in love with him, he thought.
He trusts her completely. Lucas thought back to the day on the deck of the yacht. She thought that Mr. Foster was on the verge of death, and she tried to trade her life for his. She has real courage, she thought. Lucas had developed a new level of respect for Jade that day.
None of these scripts work. Maybe I could find a good novel to work with, Dario said. He thought for a while and then added, I remember that Jade has a friend called Faye. Yes, that's right, Lucas said. I think your cousin knows her well.
Lucas had already investigated everyone who had been close to Jade, so he knew about Faye in detail.
Are you thinking about the novel that Faye wrote? As far as I'm aware, she's not very well known at all. If you're thinking of basing the show on a novel, wouldn't it be better to choose a popular one? You don't need to concern yourself with that, Dario replied. Just ask her to go out with you. Okay, but shouldn't we use your personal assistant to get in touch with her? Lucas asked. Since when is it part of my job to ask people out? Thought Lucas, not happy at all with his most recent task. Do you have any objections? Dario asked emotionlessly. No. You're the boss? Lucas replied unhappily and he left. What purpose does it serve if I ask Faye out? I have no idea what his plan is, he thought. Dario continued with his work, which had built up in the time that he had spent away from the business. He was keen to get it all finished so that he could see Jade. There's nothing more important to me than my wife right now, he thought. In Iris's hospital room, Jade looked at her watch and noticed that it was 4:30 in the afternoon. It's almost dinner time, she thought. I think I'll make dinner when Dario gets back from work. She said her goodbyes to her grandmother and asked Caroline to take her to the supermarket to get some groceries. Episode 451. Jade's yearning to be a good wife. Once Jade had picked up the ingredients she needed, she got Caroline to drop her off at home. She invited her in for dinner, but Caroline politely refused, knowing that Dario wouldn't welcome the intrusion into his personal life. In all the time we've been married, Jade thought, I've only cooked for him once. He's cooked for me more times than I can remember. I want to show him that I can be a good wife and that I can cook nice food for him. She quickly checked to make sure that Dario hadn't arrived home before her, and then she went through to the kitchen, rolled up her sleeves, and began. By 5:30, her cooking was almost done, and Dario walked through the front door. The smell of delicious food filled his nostrils, and he smiled broadly. He headed straight into the kitchen and found his wife wearing an apron and a serious-looking expression. There was sweat on her forehead, and Dario approached her from behind, put his arms around her, and kissed her on the cheek. Jade hadn't heard him come in, and she smiled sweetly at him. Dario, you're home. Dinner's almost ready. You sit down and wait, and it'll be done in a minute, she said happily. My lovely wife has worked so hard, he said, as he kissed her on the lips. Stop messing around. Don't get funny ideas. I'm still cooking, Jade said threateningly with her hands on her hips. Dario looked at her with a mischievous grin. He rubbed his lips gently against her ear, blowing softly. Jade quickly turned off the stove and put the spatula down. She turned around and glared at her husband. Dario, that's enough. The food is almost ready. Aren't you hungry? I'm more than hungry, he said, smiling suggestively. I'm ravenous. What's wrong with you? She asked. Why do you always get like this? You're a pervert. It's your fault that I get like this, he replied. I'm only like this when I see you. He continued harassing her earlobe with his lips and tongue, while he explored her body with his hands. Dario, stop messing around. Let's at least eat first, she protested. No, the only thing I'm hungry for is you, he said. I haven't seen you all day and I've missed you. You wouldn't want to make me sad, would you? He asked with puppy dog eyes. Jade was considering how to respond when Dario pushed her against the kitchen wall and pressed his body against hers. She could feel his arousal and she blushed. Dario, don't be like this. We're in the kitchen and I'm making dinner. Surely you can wait a little while, she said. Jade had been a very innocent girl when she was growing up, but ever since she'd been married to Dario, she'd found herself having more sexual thoughts, and she felt both excited and embarrassed by her own reaction to his advances. Jade, look, he also misses you, Dario said, looking down at the bulge in his pants. Jade felt herself looking at him, and she blushed even more. He's completely shameless, she thought. Before she could react, he scooped her up in his arms and carried her to the bedroom. He took off her apron and clothes in a mad rush while she protested half-heartedly. Dario, let's eat first. The food will get cold. Dario pushed her onto the bed, all the while kissing and touching her. If it gets cold, we'll heat it up. Right now, the only thing I'm interested in is you. She found it impossible to resist him. Dario, you're a demon, she said, and then she sighed helplessly and lay back. Dario took his own clothes off, but just as he was climbing on top of her, Jade said, Wait, your body hasn't recovered properly yet. We can't do this. It's okay. I'm fine, he said with a sense of urgency. My injuries are fully healed. If you're that worried, you can be on top. Jade thought back to the last time she'd been on top, and she was excited by the memory. Dario looked into her eyes and guessed what she was thinking. He smiled and said, If you like it up there, just say so. It means that I get to save some energy for later. Dario, what nonsense are you talking about? She said shyly as he pulled her on top of him. Episode 452. A Mother's Love. They made love for over an hour, and in the end, Jade collapsed in exhaustion, unable to continue. She lay on the bed panting as if all the strength in her body had been sucked out of her. Dario, on the other hand, got up in a sprightly manner, changed into some comfortable clothes, and brought her a glass of water and her pajamas. A little later, while they were eating dinner, Dario watched Jade intently. She looked beautiful in her nightclothes, and he felt himself becoming aroused again. I wish we could have carried on until dawn, he thought. It's such a shame that she needed to eat to get her energy back. He pulled her onto his lap and began caressing her as she ate. She felt the heat from his body and found it distracting. Dario, aren't you hungry too? You need to eat something. She tried to wriggle out of his embrace, but he pulled her back onto his lap. I'm not hungry for food, he replied. Jade looked at him with a tired expression and said, Dario, don't be like this. At least let me eat first. We can carry on afterward. Dario smiled and spoke softly into her ear. All right, your wish is my command. You shall have a good meal, and then a half-hour's rest before we carry on. Am I being good enough to you? He then got up and left her to eat in peace. Why should I have to barter just to eat my dinner? She thought. He's insatiable. When Jade finished her dinner, she went to wash the dishes, but Dario insisted that she sit down and rest in the living room while he cleared up the kitchen. If you don't let me do the washing up, he said, I won't give you any peace tonight. Fearing that he might not be bluffing, she relented and went through to the living room. As soon as she sat on the couch, she began replaying what had happened earlier that day in the hospital. She felt sad that her mother had tried to use her to get vengeance for the wrong she had suffered. She turned on the television, but her thoughts drifted and she looked at it in a daze. She didn't even notice when Dario walked over to her after finishing in the kitchen. Dario placed a fruit platter in front of her, but Jade continued to sit in a daze. He sat down next to her and kissed her on the mouth. She frowned, and he kissed her on the forehead to calm her down. Jade, what's wrong? He asked lovingly. She leaned on his shoulder and wondered whether it would be a good idea to tell him about her mother. She saw how worried he was about her and said, Dario, do you know who I met in the hospital today? Who? Dario asked, already thinking that whoever had made her sad might have to deal with him. My mother came to find me, she said. Dario looked at her in surprise. He knew that her mother had abandoned her when she was young and left her in the care of the Winslets. He also knew that the Winslets had treated her very badly. If her mother had been a proper mother to her, she wouldn't have had such a traumatic childhood, he thought. He stroked her hair gently, and she nestled into him and relaxed. Dario, I think you're really lucky. You have so many relatives, 2 sisters, a grandma and a grandpa, and 2 parents who both love you, but other than my grandma, I only have Dario, she thought. The so-called mother who disappeared all those years ago doesn't really count. My mother only wants to know me so that I can help her exact her revenge on her enemies. Why did she even bother giving birth to me if this is the kind of mother she was going to be? Dario interrupted her thoughts. You silly woman. They're all your family now too, and most importantly, I'll always be by your side. Am I not enough for you? He asked. He could tell that she was very sad, so he decided to stay by her side and comfort her. It's not the same, Jade said. You're so good to me, but I do long for a family of my own, for a mother of my own who loves me no matter what. Sometimes it makes me feel so sad. What's there to be sad about? I'll give you double the amount of love that anyone else could ever give you. Do you believe me? He asked challengingly. I believe you, she said with sad eyes. Jade saw slight anger in Dario's expression and guessed that the thought that his love might not be enough had offended him. She smiled fondly and wrapped her arms around his neck. I always feel safe and content when I'm with Dario, she thought. As long as I have him, there's nothing to be sad about. Episode 453. Treated with royalty. Even if I don't have my parents, I still have Dario, she thought. You should feel sad for the people who don't love you, Dario said. You're the most perfect person in the world, and anyone who abandons you will always regret it later on. It's their loss if they don't realize how special you are, and it's my gain, because I get to have you all by myself.
He kissed her on the mouth and stretched his hand around the back of her head and kissed her again more passionately. He's right, Jade thought. Why should I feel sad about someone who doesn't love me and who has let me down? Anyway, I got used to not having a mother long ago. Dario is enough for me. You're so good to me, Dario, she said. I want to be by your side for the rest of my life. I can't imagine being without you. Don't worry. I'll always be by your side. No one can get rid of me, he replied. Jade chuckled and said, Dario, you're getting sweeter and sweeter every day. You've cheered me up. If you like it, I'll talk to you like that every day, he said. She smiled brightly at him, and then he leaned over and kissed her again, his hands beginning to explore her body, reaching inside her pajamas. Dario, we've only just sat down, she protested. Can't you let me rest for a while, you horny devil? Sorry, but I just can't keep my hands off you, he replied. He took off her pajamas, and they made love passionately on the couch. Jade got up early the next morning because she had to shoot some extra scenes for the movie Decadent Lady. She'd warned Dario that he wasn't able to disable her alarm again, and she was relieved to see that he had followed her instructions. She found her clothes laid out neatly for her. She also found a note from her husband which said, Remember to have a good meal. I have something I need to do at work, so I had to leave early. Also, remember to miss me 100 times today. You know what happens if you forget. Love you. She read the message and smiled. Then she kissed it and placed it in the box where she kept all the handwritten notes from her husband. There are a lot of notes in there, she thought happily. Who would have thought that the arrogant and aloof CEO would have such a romantic side to him? When she went downstairs, she was surprised to find that he had made breakfast for her. I don't know why it still surprises me when he does that, she thought. When Jade arrived at the Decadent Lady set, she was surrounded by members of the crew who fussed over her and offered her snacks and drinks. I feel like I'm being treated like royalty, she thought. Even the director is being so kind to me. Jade's increasing popularity and fame had also been very good publicity for the movie, and everyone involved was happy to see her back on set. Since all the scenes set in a small mountain village had been finished, they were filming the extra scenes in a location in Washington, so it was easy and convenient for Jade to travel to and from the set. After greeting everyone and catching up, she got down to business. Once they started filming, she worked hard and refused the director's repeated offers to take a break. Several members of the crew commented on her work ethic and complimented her on her acting. At noon, Caroline brought Jade her lunch. Jade saw the container and suspected that it had been prepared by Dario. The familiar and delicious taste confirmed her suspicions, and she smiled broadly. How does he find the time to do these things for me? She wondered. After she had her lunch, Jade continued filming until 5:30 in the afternoon, at which point the director said she had already worked too hard, and he called an end to the day's filming. Jade had just finished changing into her normal clothes when she heard a scream from outside, followed by excited comments. Wow, he's so handsome. Isn't he Dario Foster? Oh my God, what's he doing here? Do you think he's come to pick Jade up? He actually looks like Prince Charming. He's just too handsome. I think I'm going to faint. Jade opened the door and saw Dario walking toward her. He was wearing a tailored suit and looked dashing. There was a group of women surrounding him, and he was holding a large bouquet of roses in his hand. Jade's eyes widened, and she gazed at Dario in disbelief. Dario has always kept such a low profile, but he's really changed his approach. He wouldn't usually turn up with flowers to pick me up, she thought. Miss Winslet, may I have the honor to take you home? He said in a very gentlemanly manner as he passed her the roses. Jade took the flowers shyly and smiled. She felt self-conscious and unsure of what to do, but several members of the crew encouraged her. Go with him, Jade. He came just to pick you up. Yes, you must go with him. The flowers are beautiful. You're so lucky. You must go with him. In the end, Jade allowed herself to be shuffled into Dario's car. I suppose this is a very good cover for our marriage, she thought. She was surprised to see a gathering of reporters who were taking photos of them as she got in the car holding her flowers. He rarely gets me flowers. I wonder what's so special about today, she thought. Dario, these roses are beautiful. Thank you. But why did you get me flowers today? She asked. Episode 454. An Unexpected Call. Lucas, who was sitting in the driver's seat, said, Where did all the reporters come from? I've got a feeling that Miss Winslet will be all on the front pages again tomorrow. Dario glanced at him warningly, and Lucas didn't say anything else. Jade raised her eyebrows thoughtfully and put the flowers down next to her. She punched Dario on the thigh and said, "So, the flowers are just part of the act, are they? You just want your pursuit of me to look more realistic?" Dario leaned over and kissed her on the lips, and then he whispered into her ear, "It seems like my wife has a problem with the flowers." "Of course I have a problem," Jade said in pretend anger. "It turns out that your way of chasing women is no different from any other man's. You just bring a bunch of boring odd flowers. It's not very creative or interesting, is it?" Dario chose to take her rebuke seriously. He looked at her and said, "Well, if that's how you feel, I'll arrive by helicopter next time and bring you 1,000 roses instead of a bunch. Would that be interesting enough?" Jade observed her husband's face and decided that he wasn't bluffing. That's just the sort of thing that he would actually do, she thought nervously. "Don't even think of that, Dario. I'm just joking with you. If you really do that, it will probably take weeks before I was out of the headlines. You need to give the other celebrities a chance too, or they'll get cross with me. I truly think he would do almost anything for me," she thought. "He's even willing to lower his own status to make me look good, but I don't want that. He's already sacrificed too much for me. Dario, thank you. Thank you for the flowers. Thank you for everything you've done for me. But next time, don't buy things for me. It's too wasteful. I just want to be with you. I don't want gifts," she said, and then she cuddled up to him. When they got home, Jade and Dario went into the living room to relax. "You must be exhausted after filming for so long today," he said. Then he took off her high heels to massage her feet. Just as he was about to begin, Jade's phone rang. The moment she saw the number, her expression changed. "It's Uncle John," she thought. What could he possibly want? She rejected the call, but his number flashed up again. She was about to reject the call a second time when Dario took her phone, looked at it, and smiled. "Answer it and see what he has to say," he said. Jade looked at him in confusion. She didn't want to speak to her uncle, but she wanted to please Dario, so she picked it up. Before she could say anything, John's excited voice came from the other side.
"Hello, Jade, it's me, Uncle John. I'm glad you finally answered."
He didn't seem resentful that she had rejected his first call. Before John could say anything else, Jade said coldly, "Is something the matter?"
"Well, Jade, it's been such a long time since you've been home. I know that you're very busy, but I wondered if you'd take the time to come over for dinner. Your aunt's made a lovely spread." She frowned and was about to refuse when Dario suddenly moved close to her ear and whispered, "Tell him we'll be over right away." She was puzzled at his suggestion, but felt compelled to do as he asked. "We'll be over soon," she replied and ended the call. She turned to her husband and said sadly, "Dario, what are you trying to do? You know I don't like the Winslets. Why do you want to go there? What are you up to?" "We can get some free food,"
he said with a mischievous grin. Jade frowned. Since when does Dario care about free food? She thought suspiciously. I suppose I'll find out what he's up to soon enough.
"Lucas, have you prepared the car?"
Dario called. Lucas walked in and handed him a set of car keys. Dario led Jade outside to a sports car. She looked at the New York number plate with interest. Lucas had driven the car all the way from the Foster Villa in New York at Dario's request. "Dario, what's going on?" Jade asked curiously.
"You'll find out soon enough. Get in,"
he said, as he opened the passenger seat door for her. He sat in the driver's seat. Then he picked up her bag and rummaged around in it. "Dario, what are you doing?" she asked. Ignoring her question, he found her diamond ring and slipped it onto her ring finger. Then he drove off toward the Winslet house at remarkable speed. Jade had never been in a car that was so fast. She was thrilled by the sensation as he sped past other cars on the road. Just as they were arriving at the Winslet house, Dario overtook a convertible. In the convertible, Bruce was fuming.
"Damn, who is driving that car?"
he muttered angrily.
"Please don't let that be who I think it is," he thought.
Bruce knew a lot about sports cars, and although his was an expensive car that most people would love to own, it didn't compare to the car that just passed him. Bruce had been invited to the house by John. Initially, he hadn't wanted to go, but once he had heard that Jade was also going to be there, he changed his mind in the hope that she turned up on her own.
"I can't believe that he's come too, and he's parked right in front of the house where I usually park," he exclaimed.
"Who's in that car?" Ivana asked as she stared with her mouth agape. "Does our family even know anyone who drives one of those?" Bruce ignored her questions and watched furiously as Dario got out of the car, He looked on bitterly as Dario's athletic figure walked around the car and opened Jade's door for her. Dario's suit was perfectly tailored, and he looked almost impossibly handsome. Bruce felt the jealousy build up inside him as Dario took Jade's hand and helped her out of the car. Episode 455, Building Bridges. Dario wanted to show off his expensive car in front of Jade's family. He hadn't wanted to use it before because it would have attracted too much attention and placed Jade under too much scrutiny. But now was the right time. Jade's aunt and uncle and her cousin Tyler saw the car pull up, and they were stunned. When Ivana saw Jade getting out of the car, she felt a surge of jealousy. The car had been traveling in front of them on the road, and they hadn't been able to pass it. What's she doing here? She wondered. She's sure gotten herself an upgrade. Compared to Dario, Bruce pales into insignificance. And what's Dario doing here? She hissed, her jealousy turning to anger. John Winslet, who came out to greet Jade, hadn't been expecting Dario to appear either.
It's inconceivable, he thought, that this world-class tycoon should come to our house. I want to hitch my wagon onto that without a doubt. Jade is getting more and more popular, so we need to get back to her good books.
John and his wife Suzanne had seen the news of Dario confessing his love for Jade, and they had immediately figured out that they could use that circumstance to their advantage.
This is her mother's home, so she has family ties to the place, he thought cunningly. If we're close to Jade, then we can follow Dario's rising star and have business connections all over the world. And Dario will one day inherit a huge fortune, which he will then share with Jade, and we could benefit from that. We need to remind Jade that she's part of this family. It was a good idea for Suzanne to get in touch with her, he reckoned.
Jade stepped out of the car wearing a pair of fashionable sunglasses and an expensive dress, sparkling like a goddess. Dario had picked out the dress to create an impression, knowing that Suzanne would recognize it as being far out of her price range. Suzanne instantly catalogued Jade's outfit and assessed that it was worth at least $10,000. She felt an instant inferiority complex developing.
When Jade lived under my roof, she thought, she was just a little bug that anyone could step on. Now she's transformed into a butterfly.
This was hard for her to stomach. It was even harder for Ivana, who had grown up alongside Jade, to accept this transformation. How could the bumpkin who followed me around when we were kids have become so radiant, she thought. And why is Bruce staring at her? She pinched her husband's arm, but his infatuated gaze remained fixed on Jade. She was so incensed that she stamped her foot. By the time the welcome party had gotten over their shock, Jade and Dario were at the door. John hurriedly stepped forward and held out a hand for Dario to shake.
Dario Foster, why didn't you tell me you were coming? And dear Jade, you get more beautiful by the year. I saw you and Dario on the news. So, you've agreed to let him accompany you here today?
Of course, Dario came with Jade, Suzanne said.
It's clear as day that there's something between them. Come in. You're welcome to eat with us, although I don't know if I'll meet your usual standards.
She ushered them inside attentively, completely ignoring her daughter and Bruce. Ivana was furious. Mum, Bruce and I are here too, you know.
Of course, you can come in too. Your brother Tyler's here, Suzanne said indifferently.
Jade kept her chin high and walked into her childhood home calmly. They used to be so arrogant, she thought, and now they're so submissive, but that's because of Dario, not me. They are quite ridiculous. Tyler didn't greet them, but he wasn't rude either. He leaned on a doorframe and watched them coldly, thinking,
I know Dario is the reason I went to prison, but he's a powerful man. I can't afford to be rash with him.
Ivana cast her brother a scornful look as she went past, but she didn't dare to speak out. Even worse, Bruce still hadn't taken his eyes off Jade. John led Dario to the seat at the head of the dining table, and Jade took the place beside him. Bruce and Ivana were exiled to the far end. Ivana grimaced as she looked at the table full of food, having lost her appetite. What's going on here? She thought.
We're honored to have you visiting our humble home, Dario,
John said, full of deference even though Dario was his junior for many years in the past. Jade thought he just sounded snobbish. It was more so because she had never seen him act like that. They saw that story on television of Dario wooing me, and they've checked him out, just like my mother did, Jade thought to herself.
Let me make a toast to you.
John poured a glass of wine and held it out to Dario.
No, thank you, Dario said. "We're currently trying to get pregnant, and alcohol is unhelpful. Besides, I still have to drive Jade home." They all looked stunned. Suzanne said, "Pregnant? But how come? Are you already married? Haven't you just recently declared your love for her?" Could Jade really be fortunate enough to have settled down with Dario so quickly and find a happy home together? She wondered.
Episode 456. Accusations. Dario raised his eyebrows and said calmly,
"Do you have to be married in order to have a baby?"
The Winslets all looked away in embarrassment. John hurriedly poured Dario a cup of tea, which he ignored disdainfully. John flushed.
"Well, since you can't drink, I'll toast to you as a sign of respect."
He knocked back his glass of wine and then cuffed Tyler's ear.
"I made a toast. Drink to Dario. Don't you have any manners?"
Tyler was furious, but he didn't dare show it. He forced a smile as he raised his glass. Dario held up a commanding hand to halt him.
"I think you owe Jade an apology before you toast our health."
Tyler's whole body stiffened, and Jade was surprised too. Now I get why Dario decided to show off by driving a luxury car, she thought. He's here with me to help me vent my anger. He hasn't forgotten how badly my family treated me. She felt a deep gratitude to him and reached out to take his hand under the table, squeezing it as tears of emotion rose in her eyes. Dario gave her a faint smile and took full advantage of the opportunity to hold her hand, locking their fingers together tightly. She gazed at him as if he were the only person in the world. Bruce couldn't stand to see this sort of infatuation directed at someone other than him.
"That look should belong only to me,"
he thought angrily.
"But whenever I try to catch her eye, she's already looking at him."
Ivana was fed up with being ignored. All this time, staring at another woman, she thought. I'll make Bruce suffer for every minute of it. Jealousy fed her rage, as Jade was dressed so much more fashionably than she was.
"What do you mean? Tyler owes you an apology?"
John asked. He didn't know that his son had kidnapped Jade.
"I'm sure he'd never do anything to offend either of you."
He smiled, although his forehead was covered in cold sweat.
"The Foster family could destroy our business with a click of their fingers," he thought. "No matter what he says, I must not offend him."
"He kidnapped Jade and put her in danger," Dario said with a hard edge to his voice.
"Don't you think he ought to try and make up for that?" "What? When was this?" John asked. "Tyler, what have you done? Please tell me this is all a misunderstanding."
"Has he come for revenge?" Tyler wondered, panicking. "What should I do?"
"A misunderstanding?" Dario said. "Then why would I have made sure he went to jail for it?"
The atmosphere became stiff with tension. No one dared to speak up in the face of Dario's overwhelming authoritativeness.
"How does he manage to be so domineering when he's still so young?" John thought. "I can never manage to channel that degree of arrogance." "What do you mean by that?" he said with false bravado. "Tyler went to jail because of you?" He was shocked. How can anyone dream of being bold enough to tell someone to their face that they were responsible for their imprisonment? He thought. But Dario isn't afraid at all. He knows we can't afford to offend him. It will be dangerous to get on his bad side.
Dario glanced around indifferently and loosened his tie with an arrogant sneer on his face.
"I won't show mercy to anyone who's hurt Jade."
The words carried no trace of emotion, but they were enough to have the listeners break into cold sweats. Suzanne, who had once been insufferably arrogant, was so scared that she didn't dare to say a word.
"I know where we stand," she thought gloomily, "and our status is way below that of the Fosters."
She picked up a glass of water and took a big gulp, trying to regain her equilibrium. Pretending to be calm, she said,
"Accusations like these will only end up hurting Jade more. All these years, we've treated her like our own daughter." "Is that so?"
Dario interrupted. Why was she so unhappy living in this house then? Jade's palms were sweating. Being back in that house was hard enough, but thinking of those past events and her life with the Winslets made her feel like she was being smothered. Dario squeezed her hand tighter, bringing her comfort. Knowing he was beside her helped her relax. His eyes told her, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Episode 457. Shocks and Shares. Suzanne trembled when she saw the fury in Dario's eyes. She drove her nails into her palms and tried to stay calm. Forcing a smile, she said coquettishly,
"What can you possibly mean, Dario? We took Jade under our wing when she was just a tiny thing. How can you say we didn't treat her well? We paid for everything she needed, including her grandmother's medical bills. We were really good to her."
Jade maintained her indifferent expression as she heard this bold-faced lie. She didn't say a word to Dario. She didn't have to. His eyes became even frostier. "Is that so? According to my investigations, all this family's money should belong to Jade. So it's so kind of you to use her money to cover her expenses," he said sarcastically.
"He's uncovered the truth,"
thought John despairingly.
"He knows that we misused Jade's name to take control of her assets. How is it that I, a successful businessman for decades, could be brought down by a man who is only 30?
He was worried, but he didn't dare to contradict Dario. He wiped the sweat off his forehead and smiled awkwardly.
"You've misunderstood us. When Jade's father was dying, he asked us to take good care of her. She was still so young at the time, too young to run a business. This company was built on her father's sweat and toil. I couldn't just let it fall apart."
"So, they want to shift the blame to Jade for being too young, do they?" thought Dario. A subtle smirk played at the corners of his mouth. "Is that the case? It must have been so hard for you all these years, but thankfully, you don't have to worry about it anymore. After all, Jade is over 20, more than old enough to inherit, so you must be ready to pass the assets on to her, right?" Ivana inhaled sharply. "Could Jade be here to take everything away from me?" she thought. John's smile was so stiff his face looked frozen.
"Look, Jade doesn't know anything about the business. Owning the company would be difficult for her. Besides, the board of directors would never approve it. She doesn't even have any shares."
"Shares?" Dario said. "You're joking, right? The whole company belongs to her. But it's true that Jade isn't familiar with the company's operations and doesn't have the time to run it, so being a shareholder is a good choice."
"Well, this seems a bit—"
John trailed off. If he kept talking, he'd make the situation even worse.
"Dario is an old fox," he thought, "leading me into a trap. At this rate, all of our money will end up being Jade's."
"Is there a problem?" Dario asked innocently. "I believe Jade's father also left her a lot of funds that weren't tied up in the company. If you include the business assets, you've gained a great deal of advantage from them over the years. It's past time for you to return what's hers." His eyes narrowed, and the atmosphere in the room became icy.
"I've been in charge of this company for a long time," John thought. "I won't give it up, even if everything Dario says is true. It's like this," he said. "Yes, Jade's dad left behind an inheritance for her, but her grandmother has been ill for a long time. 10 years worth of medical bills taken out of company profits."
"We're not asking for the whole company," Dario cut in. "Jade doesn't have the time to manage it. We'll be happy with 30% of the shares. For now."
30%? That's too much," Suzanne said. "I only hold 15% of the shares myself," she thought, panicking. "Taking 30% is no different from taking the entire company from us. We can't mess with the holdings of the other shareholders, so they'll have to come out of the shares we hold as a family."
"Too much? We can see what the courts think if you prefer," Dario said, still infuriatingly calm. "I believe my lawyer will be able to get Jade the settlement she deserves. If it comes to that, forget 30%. This house and everything in it will be hers." He looked around the ostentatiously furnished room with mock pity. John could feel everything slipping out of his grasp.
"The Fosters' lawyers are the best in the country," he thought. "Who would dare file a lawsuit against them? If I try to go up against Dario head on, I'll come back empty-handed."
He exchanged a glance with Suzanne, in which it was clear that neither of them wanted to give up their comfortable lives, so they would have to bite the bullet and agree.
"We will have to discuss this with the board. 30% may be a bit too much,"
John tried to bargain. Dario didn't give him a chance. "We're talking about what belongs to her. Jade decided to be kind and not take it from you entirely, but if you won't agree to our generous terms, then I will happily destroy your company, and it will be no good to anyone."
"Now I get why he's so successful at such a young age," John thought,
caught between fear and admiration.
"His coldness is terrifying. I believe he can follow through on his threat and destroy my company if he wants."
Suzanne's face went white.
"Without the company, what sort of life will we have?" she thought. No more luxuries, no more respect. We're on a sinking ship and it's time to bail. Except, she urged her husband, you have no choice. John steeled himself. I have to end this now, he thought. If I wait too long, I'll end up losing everything. Offending Dario won't end well. What you're suggesting makes perfect sense, he said. Of course, Jade is part of our family, so she should have shares in the family business. They were left to her, and she should have inherited them as soon as she turned 18. It's all my fault for being so busy and forgetting to arrange it. Don't worry, I'll arrange the transfer of the shares right away. Ivana felt like she was about to explode. She's going to get 30%, she thought. On what basis? What right does an outsider like her have to our family business? And to make things even worse, Bruce was still staring at Jade. Episode 458, The Ring. Bruce looked calm on the surface, but underneath he was seething, upstaged by Dario's performance. He's so calm, as if helping Jade get everything she wants is just the natural order of things, he thought bitterly. I've seen him be decisive before, but today he was really underhand. This is why he's already a billionaire. Just with a few words, he got Jade a controlling interest in the company. He stewed in his feeling of inferiority. Jade, meanwhile, was filled with admiration. I was bullied by these people for 20 years, she thought, and he's helped me regain everything with a single sentence. Dario smiled at her, and her heart fluttered. Seeing that John looked like he had sucked on a lemon, Dario said, You don't have to be so worried. Since my family has a controlling interest in the business now, if anything happens in the future, you know I'll bail it out. That peace of mind should be some compensation for what you've lost. John smiled in relief. I hadn't considered that, he thought. With the Fosters' backing, bankruptcy will never be a concern, and Tyler might have an opportunity to work within the Fosters' business empire. Things will just get better and better. Jade really is fortunate to have met you, he said sincerely. Jade cherished this man. But Jade wasn't paying her uncle any attention. He would never be anything but disgusting to her. All her focus was on her husband. Dario, meeting you was the greatest honor of my life, she said. I must have been an absolute saint in a previous life in order to have you fall in love with me. She took his hand, her gaze full of gratitude and love. Across the table, Bruce stared at their clasped hands with fury. She belongs with me, he thought, feeling as if his whole life had been knocked off course by the loving words Jade had spoken to another man. He wanted to pull them apart. He didn't care that Ivana was looking at him with hatred. It's the greatest happiness of my life to have met you, Dario replied, lifting Jade's left hand to his lips and kissing the back of it like a true gentleman. His action drew all eyes to her hand and the diamond ring that was now revealed on it. Once seen, it couldn't be ignored. Suzanne was stunned. Not only were there small diamonds encircling the entire ring, but the central stone was the biggest she had ever seen and had a rare and exquisite coloring. You could buy a city with a rock like that, she thought, and hid her hand, with its commonplace wedding band, under the table. Your ring is very beautiful, she said, with an attempt at cheerfulness. Did Dario spend very much on it? Dario held Jade's hand up for their perusal. Not much, under 10 million. If Jade had wanted an expensive ring, I'd have happily spent 3 times that amount. Suzanne gasped. 10 million? She thought. Even $1 million is completely beyond my reach, and I thought I was creating an impression when I went out with a handbag worth $1,000 on my arm. Suzanne wasn't the only one who was surprised. Jade schooled her face not to show her shock. I had no idea he'd spent that much on me, she thought. It's too extravagant for him to squander his money like that, but it is good to see my family put in their place. Just look at their faces. I've never been so happy under this roof before. Ivana almost choked and bit her lip hard to stop any jealous words from emerging. My ring can't be more than 10 carats, she thought. I'm so embarrassed that I once showed it off in front of Jade. The memory was so excruciating that she wanted to throw her own inferior wedding ring away. Episode 459. Apologize. Ivana had never felt so jealous and unhappy. My husband is inferior to Dario in every way. Looks, wealth, and influence, she thought. Dario makes him look like a beetle about to be stomped on by an elephant. How did Jade manage to find a man so superior to mine?
Dario was feeling quite self-satisfied. His simple statement about the value of Jade's ring had displayed his wealth and made all the other women jealous of Jade, exactly as he had intended. John sat in stunned silence for a moment before the import of Dario's words sank in. Then he became even more determined to stay on his good side. He chipped Tyler around the ear.
Earlier, Dario asked you to apologize, and I still haven't heard you say you're sorry. What's wrong with you, that you actually dared to harm your cousin?
Tyler had never seen his father this angry. He wasn't a clever man, but he knew that the game was up now.
I can't afford to offend Dario, he thought. My family hired the best lawyers, and I still got 2 months in prison. That was all Dario's doing.
He knew firsthand how terrifying Dario could be. He picked up his glass of wine in trembling hands and raised it to Jade.
I was led astray and did a really stupid thing. Please forgive me. Let's drink to a new start between us. Oh, you can't drink, right? Let me pour you some tea. There, a toast to new beginnings.
Tyler drained his wine glass, but Jade didn't touch the tea he had poured her.
Do you know what Jade suffered because of you?
Dario asked with a cutting glare.
And you think a toast will settle it?
Tyler trembled and stuttered, lost for words. John quickly refilled the wine glasses.
Please, Dario, he does regret what he did, and he apologized to Jade. Please be magnanimous, and don't make him suffer any more for his one mistake. He turned to Jade. I promise you I won't let him hurt you again. He's your family. Let's not make things ugly. After the lesson he's been taught, he definitely won't do anything like this again.
Jade smiled coldly. They're shameless, she thought. It's humiliating to even share their family name. Family? Are you joking? She said. He didn't treat me like family when he drugged me and kidnapped me. She clenched her fists, glaring fiercely at both Tyler and Bruce. It was the first time she had met Bruce's eyes since she arrived, and she couldn't stop the hatred from pouring out. He would have raped me if I hadn't been rescued, she thought. How can I ever feel anything but hatred for this man I once loved? Tyler lowered his head, rendered mute by Dario's fierce expression.
They aren't going to forgive me,
he realized. John knew the reach Dario had.
He could make it so that Tyler goes back to prison again, he thought.
He grabbed Tyler by his ear with one hand and his thin wooden walking stick with the other hand.
What are you doing?
Suzanne asked nervously, stepping between them.
Out of my way, woman, John said. This is all your fault for spoiling him.
He gave Tyler a shove which sent him crushing to his knees and then brought the cane whipping down across his back. Tyler flinched, but didn't dare to move as his father caned him again and again. Jade leaned back in her chair and watched the show. If my uncle thinks this will make me forgive him, that's just wishful thinking, she mused. They can't make up for what I suffered, no matter what they do.
You ungrateful brat. How did you dare attack your cousin?
John ranted as he continued to bring the stick swishing down.
I'll keep beating you until I hear a proper apology. I really am sorry, Tyler said through gritted teeth. What I did to you was so wrong. Please forgive me. Louder,
John demanded and hit him again. Suzanne sobbed quietly but didn't try to stop her husband.
I'm sorry,
Tyler shouted.
See?
John said, resting his cane across his shoulder and staring at Jade.
Look at him groveling. He knows he's in the wrong. Are you ready to forgive him yet? If you want to punish him yourself, you can borrow my cane.
You think Jade should dirty her hands? Dario said. There was an awkward silence, broken only by Tyler's soft moans. Dario relaxed back in his chair, as if he felt completely at home, and began to eat the food that had lain forgotten on the table all this time. Finding a choice piece of meat on his plate, he lifted it flirtatiously to Jade's lips.
It's good, Jade,
he said.
And try the fish.
He deboned her on his own plate and then transferred the fillet to hers. Jade didn't hesitate to show her gratitude with a soft kiss. The others at the table watched the two of them eat in stunned silence. Jade and Dario continued as if there was nothing out of the ordinary about their actions, completely ignoring the others. Tyler continued to kneel beside the table, whimpering, his back covered in bruises. Suzanne, her heart aching, kicked John under the table and glared at him. John cleared his throat.
Dario, since Tyler is so repentant, would you mind if he eats with us?
Episode 460, Bruce and Dario.
Hey, I didn't ask him to kneel,
said Dario. Why are you asking me? He's your son. You can do whatever you want. Jade, try these ribs. They look really good. He said this without even glancing at the Winslets. He was focused on choosing the best morsels for his wife.
Tyler was furious, but he bit his lip and said nothing. Dario has some nerve, he thought. How dare he come here and order people around? It was unbelievable. Brat, you can get up now, said John. Go and take some aspirin and then come back and eat. Smirking, he looked at Dario for approval. He was afraid that if he upset Dario, he wouldn't be able to keep his position as CEO. Suzanne broke in. Dario, if we'd known you were coming today, we would have prepared a special meal. Jade, is the food okay? Do you like it? It's okay, said Jade. Usually I only eat food prepared by a 5-star chef, but this is fine. Dario choked back his laughter, struggling to keep a straight face. Jade smiled. She had been with Dario a long time, and from him, she'd learned to show off a little. But she wasn't lying this time. Dario's culinary skills were indeed comparable to those of a top chef. Ivana observed the way her family were treating their guests, and completely ignoring her. All the good dishes were placed in front of Dario and Jade, while she had just been given some plain vegetables. It made her blood boil. She hadn't even been served a cup of tea. She hadn't expected her parents to be so biased that they would ignore their daughter's feelings so blatantly. It made her very uncomfortable. Of course, other than Jade and Dario, no one had much appetite, and most of the food remained untouched. After the meal, John didn't waste any time in signing the papers. He transferred Suzanne's 15% stake to Jade, along with another 15% stake from his own shares. That left Suzanne with no shares, and him with 15%, while Jade became the biggest shareholder with 30%. Because this was a personal share transfer, they didn't need the approval of the board of directors and could sign the contract on the spot. Jade couldn't miss Suzanne's pained expression. Her own face remained a mask as she quickly signed her name and took the contract. Suzanne, who had just lost all of her shares, still had to prepare coffee and dessert for them, with a smile plastered on her face. Jade, you haven't been back to see us for such a long time. Eat up. The brownies are still warm, she said. However, she continued to ignore Ivana. Jade too paid her no heed. Dario fed Jade pieces of cake, wiping the crumbs from her mouth with a napkin. A phone call came in from Lucas, and Dario told Jade he would take it outside. He was comfortable leaving her alone with her family, as he knew they wouldn't dare to lay a finger on her with him so close by. Bruce followed Dario out. No one noticed him leave, because no one was paying any attention to him and Ivana. As Dario concluded his call, he became aware of Bruce glaring at him. He glanced at him with indifference and was about to return to the dining room when Bruce rudely blocked his way. "Haha," he said sardonically. "I see how clever you are with Jade. I know what's going on. Was it really you who saved her 5 years ago?" Bruce had always felt it was very strange that Dario confessed to having saved Jade. It was too great a coincidence. He thought that Dario must have used the same method as him to deceive her. Dario put away his phone. His body language projected strength. "It's none of your business," he said coldly. "You've no right to talk to me like that." The contempt in his eyes infuriated Bruce. "It has everything to do with me," he replied with a sneer. "I'm afraid you don't know Jade very well. She's only been with you for a short time, but she and I were together for a full 5 years. He was proud of the time he had spent with her. It's what gave him the confidence to confront Dario. Dario's gaze remained icy. "So what? She's with me now, not you. In any case, she never really loved you. If she never loved me, why did she stay with me for so long? And she treated me well too." When he recalled the infatuated looks she had once given him, he felt only pain and regret. Dario glanced at him, taking in the changes in his expression. "Jade values relationships," he said calmly. "Once she gives someone her heart, she won't easily change her mind. If you're right, then how could she fall in love with me and become my girlfriend? The answer is that she was never truly in love with you." He pursed his lips and looked at Bruce coolly. Just talking about Jade filled his heart with love. Bruce clenched his fists. "How can he speak that way to me?" he thought bitterly. "Why is he saying that Jade never loved me? She gave me 5 years of love." Staring back, he replied in a mocking tone. "You say she didn't love me, but do you think she really loves you? How long have you known each other? I don't believe she loves you. You're better connected than me and can help her fulfill her dreams. She just wants to use you to become a star. Actually, I feel sorry for you. You're being used, but you don't realize it. I thought you were smarter than that." As Bruce said this, he noticed a murderous look appear in Dario's eyes. The next few seconds filled him with terror. Dario whipped out a gun from behind his back and pressed it against his head. Bruce's legs turned to jelly and his eyes grew wide as saucers. Dario's expression was ruthless. Don't be a fool. His voice was as cold as ice. I already told you that I'll show no mercy to anyone who harms Jade. If you say another word against you, I'll shoot you. Inside, Bruce felt abject terror, but he maintained a calm facade. I know you sincerely want to protect her, but do you really understand her? I've known her for 5 years, and I know she values friendship, just like you said. So, do you really believe that she could fall in love with you so quickly? Dario's eyes were cold and full of danger. The temperature around the two men seemed to drop. I'm warning you, don't slander her anymore. She's kind and good. I'm not surprised she left you, you scumbag. You're not worthy of her. With that, Dario took back his gun. Killing Bruce then and there wouldn't be enough to atone for his crimes. He wanted to keep him alive, torture him, and turn his life into a living hell. He stalked off. Burning with jealousy, Bruce watched him walk toward the house. He had never expected his enemy to trust Jade so unconditionally,